Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And today we're going to be taking a look at two nuns who are believed by many to have been murdered by two different priests. This, a lot of people know that this particular photo is of Sister Cathy Sesnik, who was murdered in Baltimore in 1969, and 10 years later, about 1980. This is Sister Margaret Anne Pahl, and she was murdered in Toledo, Ohio. A priest was convicted in her case, and a priest was not convicted in her case, but many people believe a priest was involved because of the Netflix documentary, The Keepers, which gets into all the reasons that the priest may have done it. So I'm going to talk about both of these cases, whether I think the priests are guilty in these cases, and what evidence that we have. So I'm going to get into that. And first, I want to welcome everybody who is here in the chat room, who has rolled in. CJ, I think, just came in, and Amy just came in. And before I do any more, I want to say this. This case I've been asked to do, especially the one about Sister Sesnik, Sister Cathy, because I live in the Baltimore area. I live in Bowie, Maryland, so it's very close by to me, and I've heard about this case forever. And so I was asked to do this many times, and finally I decided to do it. And so I threw up the information, and I said, "Hey, watch The Keepers. I'm going to do this." And after a while, I regretted saying yes to this show. I'm going to tell you two reasons why. One is this is an extremely highly emotional show for two reasons. One is because there is the issue of Catholic clergy and the cover-ups within certain groups within Catholicism, diocese, and all that stuff. I'm not Catholic, so I don't have any connection to what's going on, but there's a lot of emotions charged around people about things that have been discovered over time in certain areas where children have been abused by people who they trusted. So there's a lot of emotions about that. The second thing that I want to point out here is there are a lot of emotions about people who have not just what happened within the whole issue of Catholicism and abuse within people who work in there, nuns and priests, but over here, the victims of abuse in general. People are very, very emotional about, especially if they have had abuse in their lives, sexual abuse especially. So those things are going to make people super emotional. That wasn't the second one. That was the first one, but a lot of emotions. And some of what I'm going to say is going to make people who are emotional not happy with me. And one thing you're not supposed to do if you want to have a successful YouTube channel is do things that piss people off, but I'm probably going to do it. The second thing, I've had to demonetize this video. There will be no advertising. I make no money from this video because in order for me to speak frankly, YouTube will demonetize this video anyway, and they will also possibly put a black mark against my channel for having it out with monetization. And I just recently had, I had my video on Epstein and McAfee was pulled. They pulled my video off. They said it was in violation. They didn't only demonetize, they pulled it. And another one they recently did was my Netflix. I did a review of the Netflix thing on JonBenet Ramsey, and John Ramsey's speaking there. I never even showed a picture. I never even talked about the crime. That was one of my highest earning videos, and they demonetized the entire video. I lost all the money. They took it all back. I think they kept the money. I don't know what happened to the money, but I don't have it anymore. And like the Dardine video, I did that. Somebody wanted me to do that, the Dardine family murders, and I did what I'm doing today. I demonetized it because it was so gruesome that I knew it wasn't going to fly. But I still wanted to be able to do the show because I was asked to do it, and it was fascinating. So that's the same here. So I just want to say to you people who are requesting these things and people who are viewing this who are happy I did it anyway, please do consider that little $ sign that says super thanks, because I'm getting no no advertising money off of this show. Please support the channel by hitting that super thanks button, or go to my PayPal and do that. Or if you don't want to do that, I do wish that you would maybe join Patreon. And you can be in the live shows and the chat room like these wonderful folks here. It's $5 a month. It does help support an educational channel. And there are 2 live shows a week, and they're part of a community. And if none of that goes for you, please do subscribe to the channel, and try not to unsubscribe because I make you mad today. Always remember that I've done hundreds and hundreds of videos, and sometimes I'll say something that maybe that's not pleasing to you, but you love everything else I do. Please don't just ask me for the one day that you're like, I don't like what you have to say, Pat. Anyway, all right, let me go on now with it's going to be, kind of interesting show. Well, we'll check with some thoughts here. There was a what? Pat, you can't make me hate you if you wanted to. Well, I managed to do it with a lot of people. So, somebody has. Oh, the thanks button. Okay. If you're at the live show, you're not going to see a thanks button. As a matter of fact, even if you're a patron on Patreon, and you come and watch this show, because if you're a patron, you can see my shows before they go public. And usually they don't have, advertising, I don't think, until I go public with it. This is not public yet. For you folks that are here, you will not see a thanks button. Next week, when it goes public, which is next Sunday or Saturday, then you'll see the thanks button. But it's not going to be here right now. Yeah. Wage theft. Yeah. And what am I going to do about it? Not much. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's always nice. Oh, thank you, Lady Jane. It's just one of these tricky things that I liken it to boxers, because my brother-in-law, Simon Brown, he was a famous boxer. He won, he was top champion, WBA and WBC, all that. And you can look him up, Simon Brown, he's famous. And I remember this one fight he had, and maybe it was an off day, I don't know. But, people were starting to shout, bum, bum. And I'm thinking, this guy's amazing boxer. And every single time he comes out here, there may be a day where he's just maybe slightly sick or kind of off his game, or maybe the other person's just really good and using techniques is frustrating him. And I'm like, what the heck? Don't be so mean, all the boxers that come out here, fight, and they care, and they do their best. And, some days I come out here and there may be a day where I either don't do my best or you don't like what I have to say. And that's the way it goes. Anyway, thank you, Lady Jane. All right. So this is going to be very tricky how I'm going to approach this, because I'm going to talk about 2 cases. This is going to be very short, and this is going to be very long. I want to point out that Inside Edition said this case of Sister Margaret Anne Pahl mirrors this case of the keepers, because the claim is they're both murdered by priests. There is one interesting similarity. Actually, they're not similar at all. And of course, her supposed killer was found guilty. He died in prison. But the Ohio Innocence Project did try to get him out. And so I'm going to do a little bit about what this case is about, and what I think he's guilty or not, and also what is similar to this. Okay, but before I go to her case, I'm just going to say this. So for all of you, this is going to be short, so I know most of you are here for this one. I want to point out a couple of things. And it is this. Okay, so The Keepers was on Netflix. It's a 7-part series. It's an hour for each one of the episodes. So it's 7 hours of. Well, what can I say? In my opinion, pure garbage. I hated it. I lost 7 hours of my life. Now, some people love the show because they're so impressed with the women who've come forth to talk about the abuse they say they suffered. But some people didn't like it. They said they liked what the women did, but they weren't happy with could have been 7 hours crushed, and that could have been just like 3 hours, which I think they should have done. And that some people didn't like the loud music, and they thought, so there were complaints about it, but most of the complaints were about the production methodology and not what was included within the show. I will go with both. I thought it was way too long. My God, they could have done that shorter, and it really just dragged. And but what they presented in the show, I have issues with. And you'll know the other. Tell me if you can. What was the other some of the other documentaries I have really had issues with? I had one recently. Which one? Which one do you think I had recently? I'm looking at some of the comments. Oh, you couldn't finish the documentary. It was very long. Even if you liked it, it was very long. It was very long. Making a Murderer. Yes, Making a Murderer was one of my most hated Netflix things because it was a defense film that was very manipulative. And of course, I think he's guilty as hell. Karen Reed. No, Karen Reed. I liked the documentary because Karen Reed made herself look really bad. But Reindeer, yeah, I couldn't watch Reindeer. It was a weird thing. That was more weird than anything else. Everybody was sort of, I did a show on that. Everybody's sort of like, she's definitely a stalker, but the main guy is like definitely kind of off too. So, and recently I did the crockumentary on Madeleine McCann. So I've had my issues. Yeah, Joan Benet Ramsey. Yeah, well, that's because it was interesting, but it was definitely, John controlling everything, and they took my money away. But what was my problem with this? All right. I want to say this before I go I'll go to here in just a second, but I just want to set this up, and then you can decide whether you want to wait to find out more or whether you just want to run away now. And, because you're not going to give me any money anyway. This is just so. I'm going to be reading from the book of one of the women that was on in this documentary. I'm going to be reading from her book. I don't want to let you know that. And this, to me, is the most important thing. Okay, so just to go quickly through The Keepers, that is the documentary on Netflix. This is this is called Jane Doe and Jane Roe. Actually, it should be ROE, but okay, so they kind of got the names kind of funny here. But they are the two women, and their names are real, so they're no longer kept secret. But they were in the documentary and talking about the abuse that they suffered from the priests, and why Sister Cathy Sesnik was murdered by one of the priests, or shall we say, somebody who was working with the priest. Okay, I have issues with them. And the main one here is Jean Wehner. She is the number one force in this whole documentary. There's 7 episodes, and she's in all of them, and she's talking about everything that was done to her as a teenager at the school where the priest was at, and the priests were at. And pretty much everybody's like, oh my God, she's a hero. She's wonderful. Oh my God. I think she's complete fraud. Don't buy anything she said. And I'm watching this starting from the beginning. I'm going, what the? I'm not buying it. And I don't know anything about the case. I mean, I'm just watching it, and I'm like, as a criminal profiler, it's not ringing right to me. And then I read her book, which is, I'm going to read to you, not all of it. I'm just going to save you the money and read you portions of the book so you'll see what I'm talking about. But she now, today, she's got this wonderful website. She's helps survivors of abuse. And believe me, I know there are survivors of abuse. And my heart is with all of you, because there's a lot of women and a lot of boys, a lot of men have suffered lots of kinds of abuse in their lives. And those who have had to deal with sexual abuse, it sucks. It does. And so I don't downplay any of that. But I want you to follow people and believe in people who aren't lying to you. The other person in here, so this is her, and this is the book, Walking with Alethea. And I will read from that book. And one of the reasons I'm going to do this in the beginning is because I want people who really are fascinated with this and want to hear more about what I have to say, to have this finished with, so they know this part, and then we'll really get into this part. The other woman that is a big part of this, who was Jane Roe, and when I say Jane Doe and Jane Roe, I mean this is part of a legal case, which they lost, by the way. This is Teresa Lancaster, and she's in there too. She's now an attorney, and she's a survivor-turned advocate for victims of sexual abuse. Didn't believe anything she said either, and there's proof that both women are not telling the truth. This is the group. This group called the Keepers Official Group, Justice for Cathy Sesnik and Joyce Malecki. In case you wonder who Joyce Malecki is, Catherine was killed. She was murdered. Well, she was abducted on November 7th, 1969. Her body wasn't found for a while. And 4 days later, Malecki was abducted and murdered. They found her quicker. So there were 4 days between the two women being abducted and murdered in the area of Baltimore. All right, so they started this group, these two women. Let me show you the two women. All right, this is Abby Schaub and Gemma Hoskins in a scene from the Netflix's The Keepers. They are throughout. They're there. They work with the director on this production, and they became sleuths, and they started this Facebook, and you can see it's got 157 members. And the Justice for Cathy Sesnik and Joyce Malecki, which is interesting because, in my opinion, their interest really isn't in the truth of what happened to those two women. It's all about taking the priests down and the sexual abuse stuff, which I don't have an issue with, but I want to talk about conflating things. This is where I have so much trouble with people who watch my show because they don't understand conflating things. All right, so there is abuse within many kinds of situations. Abuse from, I don't know, in the Boy Scouts. There have been scoutmasters who have abused boys. There are doctors who have abused patients. There are numerous religious leaders, and I mean, like, there could be a priest, it could be a lama, it could be whatever, that they get power. It could be Jim Jones. So it could be a reverend. It could be anybody who gets power within a certain group. It could be a teacher. We see that everywhere. And those people who get power within organizations can then abuse people, especially children. This happens, and it's an ongoing, horrible, horrible issue. However, just because it's an ongoing horrible issue, you don't need to conflate that with things that aren't actually linked. And that's where people have problems, because they want to link things that really, quite frankly, aren't to be linked. And so this is a problem I have, where they're saying they're concerned about Justice for Cathy Sesnik because their big concern is that they link her murder. They want to link her murder to the Catholic Church. And I will show you later why her murder has nothing to do with that at all. Absolutely nothing. Not that there aren't other issues. Don't conflate things. But that is a very popular thing to do. The other thing I have a problem with people conflating is when I talk about how you can prevent becoming a victim or why somebody becomes a victim. People say, oh, you're victim blaming. Constantly get this nonsense. No, what I'm saying is, and you're going to see this in this case, I believe that she might have been murdered because her personality was a bit, shall we say, rough, difficult, obnoxious. And if you're that kind of person and you are dealing with another person who has a severe personality disorder, they may not walk away. They may kill you. So just, when you as a human being go through life and you act in a certain way, you behave in a certain way, and you take chances, you're high risk, low risk, whatever you are, you can put yourself in the sights of and anger or whatever. It's not your fault, but you do make yourself a higher risk victim. I point out all the time, a psychopath, their statement is, if there are no victims, there are only volunteers. And I have been attacked for that. They're like, how can you say that, Pat Brown? I'm not saying that. That's what the psychopath says, So when he sees a woman running at dusk down a bike path and there's nobody around, Mr. Serial Killer says, she's volunteering to be my victim. He blames her because, and since I'm already demonetized, the bitch made me do it. I think that might be the case here. The bitch made me do it. And I'm not absolutely sure of that. I don't mean why the thing went down. The evidence is a little weak, but interesting. So I'll get into that in just a second. But people become victims sometimes because their behaviors put them in a situation which is dangerous. It could just be taking I took the metro at night. I try to get back to my house, and I don't take the metro at night anymore coming back to where I live, because by the time I'm getting close to my house at night, there's a bunch of squirrely characters that are on the metro with me. The guys who jump over the fare thing and don't pay. And it gets creepy. I've had to actually jump off and get back on other cars. I've had to arrive at my destination and tell the security guard, don't let the guy follow me to the parking garage. So I have to make sure that I don't become a victim. So I don't, and getting drunk and getting crap drunk and then going off to some crazy dude's apartment can make you a victim. It doesn't mean that you deserve to get killed. It just means that they decided, the psychopath, that you're a victim. You're a volunteer, for whatever he wants to do. That's their point of view, not mine. But I do try to help people understand how to prevent themselves from getting in situations that can get them hurt. Because you run to the wrong person, they'll do you in. I mean, my ex-husband, we had a non-amicable divorce, but I never thought about shooting him. That never crossed my mind. Why? Because I'm not a psychopath, although some people think I am. So, okay. Moving along. Oh, I hate the you made me do it argument, but that's what a psychopath will say. And that's what he will say, because he blames everybody else. But that doesn't mean that the victim didn't maybe make some choices that weren't the best for safety. That's all I'm pointing out, because I try to save people's lives. And, if you want to fault me for that, I don't mean that. Every woman should have the right, and every person should have the right to walk any place they want at any time of night, no matter what situation they're in, go with anybody. Okay, fine. You live in La La Land. That's not the way life works. All right. Let me go to. Oh, I was in the middle of something. Okay. I wanted to point out a little more about the show, and then I'm going to go to this one. Okay. So we have this woman who is the majority of the show on The Keepers, and she gives this long and incredible, and I want to say incredulous story about what happened to her at the school that she was in, and why the priest is guilty of killing Sister Cathy Sesnik. Oh, I meant to go back, because I absolutely love this comment. I got to go way back up, because it's right in the beginning, before we even started the show. Where is it? Because I loved it. Oh, thank you, Lila. I'm not calling you out, Lila. This is the way. This had such impact on people. I watched The Keepers years ago and was absolutely fascinated, and you can be, as well as utterly appalled by this shockingly unbelievable story. Although I do believe it happened. I can hardly wait for your take. All right. So I pointed out that the words I loved were shockingly unbelievable story. Yeah, it was shockingly unbelievable to me, but believable to many other people. And you're not going to be alone, because the way it was presented, one of the things, the reason I'm so upset with Netflix and this show, and that the women who were involved in this show. Let me go back to the women who were part of, and also the guy who, I forgot what his name was. Where's these women? But not them. Those are the women who were in the show. Where's the women that were? Oh, here we go. Schaub and Hoskins. They decided to be little sleuths, and then they got the attention of Netflix, and so this whole show went down. Well, the problem is, when they presented this show, and they brought Jean Wehner on, they never said where she got her statements from. She says, this happened to me, then this happened to me, this happened to me. It goes on and on and on. But these are recovered memories. These aren't any, she didn't even remember any of this stuff for 2 decades. Then suddenly, when she saw a picture, she remembered things that happened to her. And this is recovered memory syndrome, which is nonsense, in my opinion, for the most part. So they don't even let you know that. So you're really sucked in. You're like, oh my God, this happened to her. This happened to her. This happened to her. This happened to her. And then you're like, maybe it didn't happen to her. And I'm going to go into why it did not happen to her, which is why I find it so offensive. So anyway, so I'm going to read you the book. Not read you the book, read you pieces of the book. And then the other woman now says she's now a lawyer. And this is the people that run, the 2 women that run this thing. And they've got tons of members. And everybody wants to get justice for Cathy Sesnik because they say the priest killed her. And these are the women who are involved in that. Okay. One other thing I will point out is Tom Nugent. Tom Nugent is a veteran investigative journalist and feature writer who's reported for the New York Times, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, Mother Jones, and blah, 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 blah. He has been investigating and reporting on the murder of Sister Cathy Sesnik for more than 20 years. Dude, I can report on her murder in this video and be done. What is the difference between you and me? You are trying to get an audience full of claims, lies, nonsense. I've lost all respect for this reporter because you did that. I can tell you right now exactly. I think I know what happened to her, and I can do it in this video. So I want to point out one other person because I'm so impressed by him. This is Mark. I just got this blocked there. I can't even see his name. Mark Pendergrast. Mark Pendergrast. He wrote this book, How the Myth of Repressed Memory Arose and Refuses to Die. I will read you from Mark's article. When I went to try to find out what happened with this, the whole keepers thing and the priests and everything, I went online and every single media outlet was like, the priest probably killed her, the priest probably killed her, the priest probably killed her. All these women that were in keepers, they're telling the truth. Every one of them except two articles out of hundreds. Mark Pendergrast was one of them. And the other article wrote, and they said, oh my God, we saw Mark Pendergrast's article and we want to link. So I appreciate the fact that they linked to his article. I'm going to read his article to you. Because he's one of the few people that had the balls to say, this is nonsense. And that's not good for your career. I say, doing this is probably not going to do me a lot of good. But I'm here, and I always speak the truth, and I try not to let money control me. So there you go. So now that's where I'm going to get to as soon as I finish up with this other side here. All right. Let me check some of your comments before I go there. I've got to get everything rolled back down here because I rolled to before the show just to get that one comment from Elila, which I think I get where you're coming from. This is the power of the media. Sarah, Doug Carter knows if the media murder is in the room. That was funny. Doug Carter's not one of my favorite people in the Delphi case. Anyway. Sarah, I don't understand why professionals would believe someone would lie about something right out of the gate. A lot of it's agenda. People have so many agendas, and they also want to stay on the side of what makes you popular. Because let me tell you, I don't do that. I'm not so popular. It's the hate you get. You can check the comments when this thing goes public. You're going to see a lot of comments that aren't very nice to me because people want to hear what they want to hear and they want to believe what they want to believe. And the problem is, it's not that there wasn't, I say it's conflating things. It's not that there wasn't abuse to some people, to some girls, and to some boys within certain situations. I'm not denying that. But if you're going to be honest about things, you can't conflate things because it suits your purpose. So anyway, all right, let me go to this case because I want to start with this one. All right. This case happened, I forgot the dates now. Okay, we're talking 10 years after this case. All right. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to spend so much time on the other case. I got to put Sister Margaret Anne to rest. Although somebody else did put her to rest way earlier. All right. So here we have Sister Anne Pahl. This is priest. Oh, let me get all the names straight. There's so many freaking names here. Do forgive me when I can't remember any of them. All right. This is like I'm going to use this particular media outlet for this show just because it has some information that I left out of the other media outlets, and it has something I want to point out in it. And so it's from the New York Post, and it's very Satan cult priest on trial in 80 nun slay, chilling evidence in unholy crime as decades-old mystery unravels. Okay, they're a rag. Okay, it's like the Daily Mail. It's like the Sun. You know what I mean. But it's the U.S. version. All right. Sister Margaret Anne Pahl may soon be able to rest in peace. More than a quarter century after the elderly nun was found strangled and knifed to death with stab wounds over her heart resembling an inverted cross, her suspected killer is finally standing trial. He is a priest, the priest she worked with, a priest who has been linked to a cult of sadomasochistic clerics who dressed as nuns. Sorry. Who dressed as nuns. What? You shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't laugh at this, but it's so ridiculous. When they allegedly, then they put allegedly, sexually abused and tortured children. Okay, if you're going to put allegedly in, let's not talk about them being dressed as nuns who are doing sadomasochistic stuff. It's alleged, so it's not proven. So don't do that. You're supposed to be a news outlet. Anyway, and I'll get to the story that they're referring to is what got the case reopened, and which is why it has a link to, in a way, to the Baltimore case. Okay. The Reverend Gerald Robinson, 68, slight and balding, and facing possible life imprisonment. He got life imprisonment. He was convicted. In the murder of Sister Margaret Anne, her brutal ritualistic murder. Now I want to put the quotes around ritualistic. This is a problem because where does that come from? Okay. And who's doing the ritualistic stuff? She was murdered in a brutal ritualistic murder in the sacristy of a hospital chapel in Toledo, Ohio, on April 5th, 1980, a day before Easter and her 72nd birthday. He's believed to be the first Roman Catholic priest in the United States to be prosecuted for the murder of a nun. All right. So okay, so yesterday in a Toledo courtroom, a gray-haired mannequin, I guess she's gray-haired, dressed to resemble the victim in a blue outfit, was laid on the floor as prosecutors and witnesses described the discovery of her body. Okay, great. I haven't been able to find that much information on this case, which is why I can't go into totally whether I think she was murdered 100% by him or not. I don't have enough stuff, but I have some opinions. I always have opinions, you know me. It was unnatural. Sister Phyllis Ann Gerald said of the ritualistic way Sister Margaret Anne's body had been left posed on the cold marble floor. So what happened? Okay, the arms and legs were straight. There was no sign of blood. She said, people don't die so straight. That is true. I'll give her credit on that. Probably she didn't go, I'm dying. Yeah. Okay, so somebody probably did pose her to some extent of some sort. Although, let's say somebody came up behind her and grabbed her, hit her over the head, and then dropped her to the floor and her arms just fell out. Then there goes the ritualistic pose. So you got to be very careful about supposed ritualistic crap. When they discovered her sprawled on the marble floor of the sacristy, where she had gone to begin preparing the chapel for Holy Saturday Mass, a white altar cloth was draped over her body and candles encircled her. I've never understood the candles encircling her part. I'm not sure how many we're talking about or what the situation was. This is very vague to me. But there was a cloth draped over her. She had been strangled with such force that 2 bones in her neck were broken and the blood vessels in her eyes had burst. Okay, so, basically she had been strangled. There were 31 stab wounds on her neck and chest, and 9 of them over her heart, chillingly defining an upside-down cross. You see, now we're getting the satanic stuff. Now, here's the funny thing. Okay, this is a cross. If you're facing the victim and you're stabbing her over her heart, and you're going, this would be a cross. If you're coming from behind her and her body's in front of you and her head's here, and you're reaching over and stabbing her heart, it could be that it looks upside down when it's not really any meaning at all. That's my point. We don't actually know whether the stabbing was meant to be an upside down cross or whether it just looked like that to people. Got to be careful of this stuff. So there were 31 stab wounds on her neck and chest. Okay. Her smock had been pulled up, her underpants, stockings, and girdles had been yanked down. And what investigators say was an apparent, I'm putting quotes there, they didn't say, there were quotes, apparent bid to mislead them into believing she had been sexually abused, which was not the case. I agree with this. There doesn't seem to be any, they found her body quickly. There were no signs of sexual abuse. This looks staged to the police. The underwear had been pulled down to look like she had been sexually assaulted. Her smock had been pulled up. Okay, wait. Okay. Robinson, the hospital chaplain, quickly became a suspect, the sole suspect. Hospital workers told detectives that the nun and the priest didn't get along and that the day before she was killed, Sister Margaret Anne had criticized the way Robinson had handled Good Friday services. Okay, so problem was, and her family says this, she was quite strict and she was quite outspoken. And being about the same age as her, I can tell you a lot of people my age, they say, I can say anything I want to. I'm at this age. I can do what I want. I can say what I want. And I don't care what anybody thinks. And they can be obnoxious. Now, this is where I point out. It's not that she deserves to be stabbed to death. But if she has this personality that is very aggressive and not pleasant, and this guy has his issues, he could get pissed off at her. I don't know what his issues are, but he could just get like to the point where he just hates her and wants her gone. That would make him having a personality disorder, mind you, the P word. But, still, because, going and killing somebody and stabbing them up that much, strangling them, stabbing them, puts you in probably a personality disorder category. All right. So then he claimed, the police questioned him at length, and he took 2 lie detector tests. He claimed, I think, because they didn't go so well. They were like inconclusive. He claimed he had heard the confession of Sister Margaret Anne's killer. So he said that the killer came in and confessed to him. But he soon admitted he was lying after a detective expressed disbelief that he would violate his oath of confidentiality as a police. So in other words, some guy comes in, confesses, and then he goes and says, oh, that's the guy. This guy said he did it. And then he admitted he lied. Why would this guy, first of all, say somebody did it and then say he lied? That was what the police made them very suspicious for good reason. He didn't like her. She pissed him off. So let's see. They searched his living quarters down the hall from the chapel and the sacristy and confiscated a sword-shaped letter opener, believing it could be the murder weapon. So one of these, very good murder weapon. Letter openers are really useful for murders. Don't use them. Okay, so the case was shelved because they couldn't come up with enough evidence. And I'm okay with this. People don't understand. They thought he probably was pissed off of her. They thought he probably did it. And he had a weapon that was like the weapon, but there wasn't proof it was the weapon. Therefore, and there was supposedly some book on satanic rituals that they found. But, he's as a priest and a lot of Christian ministers and stuff have these books because they're trying to fight against this kind of thing. So that to me is not proof of anything. So, but he could have those ideas of, okay, I'm going to make this look, I'm going to stage this as whatever, I'm going to stage a satanic thing. I'll do an upside down cross, or maybe it meant nothing at all. So the police didn't have enough to arrest him. But guess how he got arrested? This is where it gets weird and why it starts linking to the Baltimore case and the whole, Sister Cathy Sesnik. All right. It was shelved until December 2003 when investigators learned that a 41-year-old woman had told the Toledo Catholic Diocese that when she was a young girl, she had been subjected to ritual sex abuse by a satanic fraternity of priests wearing nuns' clothing. Now, here is where I make the major point. As a profiler, I am very aware of how people commit crimes. I'm aware of how people commit sex crimes. I'm aware of how perverts do perverted things. And when people tell stories that don't ring true to me, it's not because I don't want to believe them. It's because I'm like, that probably didn't happen. This is not the way people do things. This was her testimony. In testimony before I can't pronounce that, diocesan, I don't know, sex abuse panel. She said the priest had forced her to participate in a series of stomach-turning cult-like ceremonies in which she was placed in a coffin filled with live cockroaches, required to eat what she believed was a human eyeball, and penetrated. Sorry, I had to laugh. This is so stupid. And penetrated by a snake. The quotes are there. To consecrate these orifices to Satan. She claimed that during the sick rituals, cult members molested children, made them watch other youngsters being abused, killed an infant and a 3-year-old, and chopped up dogs. Get out of here. This is what you see when you see people who are fabricating stuff. They go way past what is rational, reasonable, and even for a pervert, because even perverts are going, I wouldn't do that. There are ways people commit perverted things. There are serial killers who put people in their basements and torture them and do horrific things to them. They don't do that. And I'm going to say that priests who they're dressing up as nuns aren't doing these things either. They might do, again, I'm not saying there's not sex abuse. I mean, somebody might like to touch a boob. Somebody might like to touch a butt. Somebody might like to have sex with somebody. There's things that they might do, watch, do all kinds of things. But what they don't do is put a snake up somebody's vagina. Come on, get out of here. I don't even know how the snake. Okay, we aren't going to go. And they're forced to eat a human eyeball. Oh, come on. And then that they killed an infant and a 3-year-old and chopped up dogs, but nobody ever heard about this stuff. This is just absolute nonsense. And here's what bothers me. They believe her. Who are these people that are believing this nonsense? And she identified Father Robinson as one of the priests who molested her, probably because she was just going to that. She probably also heard about the murder. So she's throwing him in. When a veteran cold case squad investigator heard about her testimony, he recognized Robinson's name and recalled the priest's suspected involvement. Okay, so I don't know that the detective really believed this crap, because if he does, he's an idiot. But he might have just remembered the name and thought, I should just take a look at this case again, because the case has been sitting there for years. Maybe there's something new. So he may not really believe it, but he just I'm going to look at it. The old files were dusted off, and the priest's letter opener and the blood-stained altar cloth were taken out of storage. The nun's body was exhumed, DNA samples were taken, and forensic experts were called in to analyze the altar cloth and letter opener. And the analysis compared blood patterns imprinted on the altar cloth to Robinson's unusual letter opener, linked the priest to the murder. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, because I can't see the supposed blood patterns. I can't see it, so I can't say. He was then arrested. Now, 2 years after arrested and 26 years after murder, new details about the ritual slayings are expected to be revealed. He got convicted anyway, so I don't know if people believe the ritual nonsense or whether the other stuff was useful. Forensic experts will testify the diamond lock blade of Robinson's letter opener fit a stab wound in the nun's jaw like a key in a lock. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it's overdone by the prosecution. I can't say. The hospital workers will testify the chapel door was locked, quote, for the first and only time ever at 7 a.m. on the day of the murder, and Robinson lied when he told police he didn't have a key. Now, that's more meaningful. All right. The defense lawyer, Alan Konop, scoffed at the prosecution's circumstantial case against Robinson, claiming it is full of important inconsistencies and discrepancies. I wasn't there, and I can't find enough information to say that's true. I think that I would say it looked like, I don't believe that it was satanic. I believe whatever was done was staged. And the only person I can think would stage it would be him. Okay, because it looks more likely, since he lied about this confession, all this stuff, that he was angry with her and was fed up and went in and killed her in a rage, and then tried to stage it looking like a satanic thing, because that would look like not him. Now, one of the dumb things, though, I want to point out the dumb things. So a profiler, this is just, I think retarded is a new word we can use again, but I like them. It was retarded. I mean, and it's a sorry. I know some people don't like using that word, and they don't like using all certain things I say they don't like anyway. But anyway, this is just annoying as heck. So let me try to find it. I think I put it up here. It's from a profiler. And this, let me see. Oh God, I don't know where it is. It's the little stuff again. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to flip through these things here a second. Okay. I have to flip. Okay. Where is it? Okay. Now it's probably here. No, where is it? Oh, here we go. All right. Last one, of course. The following evidence was presented. This is from the appeal. Alan Conop was questioned regarding undisclosed documents from individuals who purported seeing a black male in his 20s around the time of the murder. Conop was also questioned about a criminal profiles report, which indicated that the suspect was likely to be non-white, in his 20s, possibly Spanish, and extremely strong. Conop was asked about the convicted serial killer Carl Eugene Watts, who'd been living in Ann Arbor, Michigan around the time of the murder. Conop acknowledged that information about the black males and Watts could have been helpful during the trial. That's Watts. All right, Watts is a serial killer. She was in Michigan. This was an Ohio case. Get out of here. What does he have to do with any of that? He's a serial killer, but she wasn't raped. I mean, why would he come into that location and kill her and fake a satanic thing? It's nonsense. So he has nothing to do with it. Then again, why is the profiler saying the guy is non-white? What proof does he have at the crime scene that the guy was not white? That's ridiculous. They might be Hispanic. Get out of here. So, which in a hospital. So you see some black people, some Hispanic people in a hospital. So can't be a white guy who killed her. What the garbage profiling is that? So that really ticked me off, because that's just nonsense. And that's one of the reasons I have trouble with certain profilers who make up stuff not based on evidence. So what do I think happened? Who is the most likely suspect? He is the most likely suspect. Do I think they had enough proof for conviction? I can't really say, because it wasn't in the courtroom. I don't have enough. I would like to see all the rest of the stuff, so I can't really say. But I don't see any other good suspects and other good motives, and anybody else who would stage a crime. So do I think he probably was the right guy? Yes. Do I think it had a damn thing to do with satanic stuff? No. Do I think the woman's testimony that he was dressing along with other priests in nuns' robes and making her eat cockroaches and eyeballs? No, that is garbage. And this is the same kind of thing we're going to see in the next part when I talk about the claims of the abuse victims, which I think are so outrageous and not the way things work. So that's my connection to it, that we have more almost like that. Remember the satanic panic? That popped up during the, during the 80s and the satanic panic, where little children were claiming the most ridiculous things were being done to them in the nursery schools and all kinds of garbage. And the way it was wrong was because that's not the way things work. And even if people are evil, and even if people do absolutely despicable, horrible, vicious things, that's still not the way things work. So it's not saying that people can't be horribly abused. It's just how it's done. There are ways and there are not ways. So let me check the comments. Would it be true to say, hi Lynn, that someone capable of child abuse is a psychopath and be capable of murder? It's possible. I mean, the fact that somebody would abuse a child, why are they doing that? I mean, there are times when they might do that because they're on drugs and other things. But if they abuse a child purposefully, cold-bloodedly, then they're probably psychopathic. Yes. A psychopath is capable of everything, but most of the time they're not violent. And people confuse that. They say, Pat, everybody, you think everybody's a psychopath is a murderer. No, I don't. I do tend to think most murderers are psychopaths, but not the other way around. A lot of psychopaths can work, for example, in as teachers, as politicians, as reverends, as priests, and they love power. So if they are able to attain it through some level of ability that they have, then they can be in a high level of power. Now, most of them even are not going to commit a crime like murder, like a murder. Like he was not a serial killer. If he's guilty, he's not a serial killer. What he is a situational killer. Like Chris Watts, who suddenly decided he didn't want to be married and have kids anymore. That's a situational killer. That's not a serial killer like Ted Bundy. Situational killer is one time I'm pissed off and I want this person out of my life. People are either useful or in the way. Now that is very true for psychopaths. Now you can get rid of people in different ways besides murder. You can divorce them, fire them from their jobs, blackmail them. You can do all kinds of things to them. You don't have to murder them, but they're either useful or in the way. Or you can just walk away one day. You can just say, I'm going to go get a pack of cigarettes and never come back. You can do that. So most psychopaths are not murderers, but cold-blooded murderers are pretty much all psychopaths. So I'd never look spiffy. Get out of here. This is the spiffiest I'll ever look. I have a, funny you mentioned it, I have a series of basically t-shirts that I wear for almost all my shows because I'm lazy. I can't, getting dressed up like I used to for television when I used to do, go into the studio and sit there. I used to have whole beautiful suits and all that crap. For most of my shows, I use my t-shirts. It's either a black t-shirt or a blue t-shirt or a red t-shirt. they're all from Amazon. I've got like 10 of them, This is spiffy. This is one of my fancy shirts. I wore that just because it was talking about, I just thought I should dress up a little for this commentary today. Oh, Lord. Let me check some of your other comments before I go on now to this other thing. Pat doesn't care. What are you saying? Pat doesn't care. Probably not. I do care about things, but some things I don't care about. And somebody said the other day, I took my Lord, they love my videos, but I took the Lord's name in vain. And I don't mean to do that in any kind of disrespectful way. But have I said, good Lord? Yes, I have. All right, let's go now to this case. So now we're going to go. Okay, got to get ready for this one. All right, so we have two murders, actually. And this is where I get very upset about the keepers and all the people who are keeping the keepers in like some kind of like proof of anything. There were eventually payouts from, I'll get to that in a minute. There were payouts to, quote, alleged victims. I have to say alleged victims because I don't know how much of it was proven. A lot of it was behind the scenes. Civil cases pay out. Doesn't mean everybody's guilty. No. Doesn't mean they want people to shut up and go away. Yes. Doesn't mean it's just their lawyers say just pay out. And it may be some are guilty, some are not guilty, some is true, some is not true. I don't want to get into the whole nonsense of that because the question here is, was she murdered? Or was she not? Well, she was murdered. She was murdered, but was she murdered by the priest? And are the women who appeared in the keepers who claimed that priest did horrific sexual assaults to them, sexual abuse that went on and on and on. And she eventually found out about it, was going to rat out the priest. And that's why the priest got her killed her or got somebody to kill her. That's the claim. However, there was this problem. 4 days after she was murdered, this woman was murdered. Now, let me explain just a wee bit about this. Okay, so this is Sister Cesnik. She taught drama and English at Archbishop Keogh High School in Baltimore, Maryland. Private Catholic school for girls opened in 1965. A lot of these girls, by the way, loved that school. They had a great experiences there. They have nothing bad that they remember at all. And we're going to see why some came out later and said they did have bad experiences. And the question is, some of them may have, but some of them may have not. And that it gets very interesting. Okay, November 7, 1969, she left her apartment. She shared with Helen Russell Phillips, who was another nun, at the Carriage House Apartments at the North Bend Road in Catonsville. Catonsville is on the outskirts of Baltimore. And she was going to the Edmondson Village Shopping Center to purchase a gift for her sister's engagement at the Hex Jewelry Store. And I don't know how many remember Hex, but Hex used to be a big deal. So she was going to go there. She cashed a paycheck that night. And it was quite a large paycheck in those days, so it was worth a lot of money. Anyway, she may have made a purchase at the bakery in Edmondson Village, Mully's, I'm not sure of that name, and a box of buns from that bakery was found in her car. At 4:40 the next morning, Russell's friends, Father Peter McKeon and Father Jereb J. Koo, so these are other people from the school, both Catholic priests, found her car in a muddy condition and illegally parked across from her apartment complex. Now, I want to point this out right away. We have this fella, Jerry Coop. Apparently, he and Sister Cathy were in love. It's one of these things where they both joined fairly young. He became a priest. She became a nun, and I think he hadn't taken his final vows, and she hadn't. That's very complicated, but it was at a point where they could basically say, this isn't for us. And they would be able to leave and get married. Probably something they should have done. But he was more ready and she was not quite so ready because she had just prepared for this all her life. But for anybody in the documentary who wants to say crap about Mr. Coop, who did leave, and he eventually married somebody else. He was at this movie, Easy Rider, with his friend. He has a 100% alibi. He did not do anything to the girl he loved, the nun he loved. He didn't do anything to her. Broke his heart. So stop it. Anybody who's saying that has anything to do with anything, stop it. Did not. So I'm not going to keep going on about him because it's all over. It just pissed me off when I'm again watching the documentary, because when somebody's didn't do anything wrong, why are you trying to make them look bad? I just find that not okay. They may not be perfect people. They may be whatever, but he didn't do anything to her. He cared about her, and he found her car the next day. And let me show you where he found her car. All right. So this was, okay. This was her car. It's found very near. Oh, sorry. What happened to it? There it goes. Okay. There's her car. It was dumped, and it was dumped in a really weird way. Just pulled off the side of the street. Just left there. It was crazy. Let's see, Sarah, there you can see it. Cathy's car, it's like halfway in the road. Her parking space is farther away. Her apartment's right there, 50 feet away. Her car is found there. It's got mud on it, and inside the car, the key is still there. There's some crap from a tree or whatever, the sticks and something, briars or whatever, hanging off the key. And you can also see, which I pointed out, which they tried to go after that poor man. They said, "Can you drive? Do you drive with 2 feet?" Because the brake has dirt on it, and the gas pedal does not, which indicates somebody's a 2-foot driver. So she goes out and does these errands, but the question always is, why is her car back near her apartment? Okay, and this is where I think the whole thing about the priest thing gets so stupid. First of all, I just want to tell you, I'm going to get to the whole abuse stuff that is said in this show, but I want to clear up this whole thing about the actual murder. Her car, at some point she was abducted in her own vehicle. Then her vehicle was driven to an isolated location, where they found her body. It was an isolated location where she was found strangled, and beaten on the head with some object, blunt force. And there was possibility that she was sexually assaulted. But they, let me see if I can find that one here. Okay, hold on a second. No, where is it? Okay, here we go. According to the timeline provided by Baltimore County Police, Cathy Sesnik case was extremely active during this period. Detectives conduct numerous interviews and polygraphs. Physical evidence from the scene is collected and preserved. Relatively little physical evidence is found at the crime scene because it took a while for them to find her body. Like it was a couple months. I'd have to look that up again. Hold on. Let's say, how long was it? November 7th, she disappeared. They found her January 3rd. So yeah, it's almost 2 months have gone by. They found her body at a kind of like a weird, like small dump site. I mean, dump site, but it was actually like a dump. It's a dump site and a dump. They said it wasn't like a big dump site, but just kind of where people dump stuff. So somebody who knew that area dumped her there. Because of the poor condition of the body, detectives were unable to determine if she had been sexually assaulted, but part of her clothes were off. So probably. So you have a woman who was abducted from near her. They don't know where she was abducted from. They don't know whether she was abducted from her apartment area or whether she was abducted from the store. They don't know. She had the bakery goods in the car. It seems to me she'd done that job. And there was supposedly something about like a necklace she was getting for her sister, and that's very confusing. So I'm not going to go there. But her car is brought back to her apartment close by, but dumped. And the guy jumps from there and runs away. I'm going to stop here and let you profile, okay? Because this is an educational channel, and I'm not all about just me talking. Well, most of the time. But I want you to profile this. Who do you think? What do you get out of this information about the car, the mud on the car, the things hanging off the key there, the 2-foot driver? What do you get? Ooh, there we go. Caitlin says, why bring it back to her home? This is a great question. Yes. Someone who knew her and didn't want anybody thinking she was away. The car was parked not in her parking space. The car's dumped. And look at the picture again. Look at that picture. That obviously, when they find the car, they know something's wrong because that's not in her parking space. It's just sitting there in the middle of the freaking road. Somebody dumped it and ran. That's the important part. Satan, Loretta, perhaps. Ooh, I like this. CJ, they lived close to her. Yes, that is my number one belief, because the only reason you have to bring the car back is because you don't have another car to drive back. And you don't need, and if you had someplace else to go, you wouldn't park the damn car there, would you? So if she were, let's say, for example, you have a different car and you grab her from the mall, from the store. She comes out of the store and you grab her. You leave your car there, but you grab her and her car. First of all, you got to go back and get your own damn car. So you would probably park around the other side of the mall or something and then run around and jump in your car and come back. Her car's not going to appear near her apartment. It makes no sense. If you are the priest who has been abusing all these girls and Cathy now knows about it and she's going to rat you out, if he or his buddy want to get her, why don't they just abduct her and dump her someplace and nobody knows anything about anything? Why would you bring the car back to her apartment? No buses around. That could be a problem. That, depending on the time of night. Yeah. It's really interesting when people dump cars in certain places. Sometimes they dump a car in an apartment where it is the people there living there don't match them. Like your white dude, you dump the car in a black neighborhood, so it looks like a black guy did it. Your black guy, you dump the car in a white neighborhood, so the white guy looks like he did it. Sometimes that is kind of a thing. They're trying to mislead the police. They had no transport of their own. That is very, very likely, and that is something that if they don't have transport, this is likely not anybody who has any kind of real good job or anything going for them. Yeah, that is a very good point. I don't think that person is a practical thinker. I think this is a person who doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They're just careless. I don't see anything. I don't think anything brilliant in any of this at all. He lives. Allison says he lives near or left his car nearby or he can't drive properly. Okay. He may live in the apartment. There was some theory that he lived in the apartment complex that she lived in. But he could also live nearby. So he just wants to get back to where he's at, dumps the vehicle, and then just runs because he can run quickly into wherever he lives, which is nearby. As far as his driving ability, I was always a 2-foot driver. So I don't know where I got it from because I took those high school lessons where you're like had to move your foot like this, and I never liked it. So somehow I ended up being a 2-foot driver, and I was a 2-foot driver as long as I had an automatic for years. I was always a 2-foot driver. And then one day, my automatic car died, and my husband at the time, my kids were fairly little. He was like, "Okay, I'll get another car." And he runs out and he gets a car and he brings it back, and it's a stick. And I'm like, "What the? I don't know how to drive a stick." He goes, "Well, you guys are going to learn." So then I had an issue because I couldn't do the normal 2-foot thing, like this. I now had to put my foot down, on the clutch, and I had to use the other one. So now I've driven nothing but a clutch ever since he got that car. I've never driven anything else but a stick. So I have a Mazda Miata now, and it's still stick. I got a sports car, so I like doing that crap. But I borrowed my daughter's car, and my daughter's car is an automatic. So every once in a while, I'm like, I gotta think through changing up my feet. But a 2-foot driver, I think that is very interesting. And that is a great piece of evidence because that was truly evidence. I like that. Was the guy was a 2-foot driver? Was he a 2-foot driver because he learned to drive 2 feet? Or did he also sometimes have a stick? Did he work in a business that had you had to use a stick? And so he's used to having 2 feet someplace. And so that's the way he drove. Don't know. And so they asked him the thing, but the other boyfriend, the priest boyfriend, they're like, are you a 2-foot driver? And he goes, well, yeah, and he was. He said, but I had an alibi, and he does. So stop it. That's just nonsense. This is nonsense. Taking a risk if he's known locally and seen driving a car could be. But it's nighttime, so you're not going to be seen really. Ish. You've never heard of a 2-foot driver, Christoph? Are you being cynic? Being just making a joke? I don't know. You never people? No. Wow. I drove that way until I got a stick. Yeah, always. Inexperienced, disorganized, driven by impulse and opportunity among all things. I'm good with that, Sarah. I think that's reasonable. Oh, yay, Loretta. Manuals are more fun. They are. Love my Miata. Oh. You and I are two peas in a pod there. All right. A very short criminal. I'm not sure about that. Okay. Little person driver. Maybe it's odd. Felicity says if the car was at her home, people would assume she's there and okay, but had to ditch sooner. I just think they had to get back to that location, and they ditched the car and ran. I think that's it. This is where things are simpler. And what is the word for the simple thing? Somebody do tell me. What is the word for what is simpler is probably the truth? What is more obvious is probably the truth. Wow, you never heard of 2-foot drivers? What's wrong with you folks? I wasn't for years. You neither. Oh my God. Wow, we've just introduced something new. Okay, razor. Thank you very much. No, not common sense. Oh, Occam's razor. Occam's razor. You gotta. This is where the whole stupid theory about the priest killing her makes zero sense. She went out shopping. Somebody abducts her, takes her someplace. Sexually assaulted her, strangled her, beat her, left her body, dumped her body, drove back and in a panic, dumped the car and ran. This is not high thinking, but here we got the proof that this is probably what it was. Here we have what happened after that. Now let's go to the 4 days later. Let's go to Malecki. Let me find it. Hold on a second. Where I put hers. She was abducted 4 days later. Guess where? From nearby. Let's look how nearby she was. Okay, this is, okay, wait a minute. I had a better thing here. About 3.3 miles away. Some people say it was 2 miles, Malecki's house. That's where she lived. She was also abducted. Now, let's see what happened to Joyce Malecki. Poor Joyce Malecki. That's Joyce. All right. So, let's see. I'm sorry. I'm on Wikipedia. All right. It occurred in Baltimore, both Baltimore crimes, within 3 miles of each other, 2 miles, 3 miles, whatever. She was 4 days later, on November 11th, 20-year-old office clerk was abducted and murdered. Now, they make a big point about, some people make a big point of how they look so similar. Not really. It's Baltimore has just a lot of similar looking people. If they're white, they kind of look similar. Don't go crazy on that. It's just, and people live in certain neighborhoods. So if you, and back in those days, you had more like white neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, Polish neighborhoods, Irish, and so people would look more similar than not in an area. So anyway, she was abducted and murdered before her body was discarded within the Little Patuxent River on the perimeter of Fort Meade. She had been sexually assaulted, bludgeoned, stabbed in the throat, and strangled to death. So it's very similar MO. And I think the FBI took over because it was on federal property. It was unsolved, but her car was dumped. Just like her car was dumped. Her car wasn't dumped near her home, but it was dumped in, let's see, where was it dumped? Okay. About 2 hours after Malecki was reported missing, one of her older brothers drove to Fort Meade to speak with somebody, only to learn she had failed to arrive. While driving home, he discovered Malecki's vehicle parked approximately 10 feet from a phone booth in front of the Vegas Club in Odenton, with the keys still in the ignition. What does that sound like? Her human bloodstains were evident in the back seat of the vehicle. Her purchases were still there from the Arundel Mall, where she was also going. So both of them had their purchases in the car. And the same thing. Her car was dumped with the keys still in it, and in Odenton, Maryland, which is very close by as well. So where the cars were dumped were the places where this guy, I think, had places to go. Well, he either lived there, worked there, whatever he did. They never actually figured out who did it. And then it says here the potential link to the murder of Cathy Sesnik. Now, the detective said, let me see if I can find it. Okay. Lieutenant Sam Bowerman, the department's expert on criminal behavior, says he thinks Cathy's murder was a crime of opportunity committed by a stranger, or probably a man whom she may have crossed paths with on a previous occasion within the community which she lived. Again, he could be a guy that she said hello to in a hallway of her apartment building. Could be that he just saw her. Yeah, I think that's very possible. The killer probably did not know the victim was a nun, and what began as a robbery developed a sexual component. I don't buy that. I don't think it's a robbery. I think he's a serial killer. I absolutely think he's a serial killer. I don't think he would have cared she was a nun, but she wasn't dressed as a nun. The killer was familiar with the area around the Carriage House apartments, correct, where Cathy lived, and the out-of-the-way Monumental Avenue site where the body was dumped. Yes, I think he was familiar with the dumping grounds. I think he was a Baltimorean through and through. I think he lived in the area. I think he knew the area. And he is a serial killer who grabbed girls and killed them and then dumped them and used their vehicles, because maybe he doesn't have a vehicle, or he parks his vehicle and then grabs them and then drives back to where his vehicle is and drives away. I don't know. But 100%, let me see here. Oh, serial killer. In my opinion, I don't see anything but a serial. 4 days apart, you have the guy with the same exact MO who abducts both women, takes them to rapes, sexually assaults them, kills them in a very similar way, dumps their bodies in isolated locations, brings their cars back and dumps their cars with the keys on them. Get out of here. This is a serial killer. And this is one of the times when you can actually say it probably is the same guy. There are times when women are abducted and murdered where you think it could be. You can't say it's the same guy who did both crimes. That, you can't tell one was stabbed, one was strangled, one was abducted, one was killed in her home. You're like, could be the same guy, but could be two different serial killers. I think this is pretty obvious. It's probably the same dude. Within 4 days, similar MOs to the point of, come on now. So this to me is an obvious serial killer crime. So how did this get conflated with sexual abuse in the Catholic Church? How did that happen? Just because somebody came forward and said, now, by the way, they did know, both of these guys knew the same priest, but they were in the same area. They were familiar with him. Doesn't mean he had anything to do with anything. If the claim is the priest killed her because she was going to rat him out, would he go find Malecki too? I mean, and stage it as a serial homicide? It's ridiculous. So I believe 100% this is a serial killer crime. And the reason it hasn't been solved, because it's difficult to solve serial killer crimes. They did get some DNA. Which one? I think that, yeah, this one didn't match the priest. So a lot of this stuff is just, my opinion, is nonsense. And the police, this whole supposed to be a huge, I almost knocked my thing over again. There's supposed to be a huge cover up by the police, covering up for the Catholic priests who are abusing all these girls, because the police are also involved in the rape and sexual assault of all these girls. So they're covering up these murders. No, they just don't know who the heck it is, because it's a serial homicide. It has nothing to do with the school or the priest. So that's my statement on this. I think it is a serial killer. And now I will go on to, I'll check some of your comments, and then I will go on to what the keeper said and why I think the women are not telling the truth. Not all of, I'm not saying, get this straight. I'm not saying there wasn't some abuse. I'm not even saying that the priest that they're claiming did these things to them, the major guy. I'm not saying he couldn't have been a squirrely, creepy dude. I'm not saying he couldn't have done something. But I'm just saying that what they're saying is nonsense. And the fact that people believe this, just absolutely believe this hands down, and don't understand that what these two women are saying just doesn't hold water. But they're all recovered memories. It's just, to me, garbage. And I find it offensive to victims and to the public and to media that you would put two people out who have no proof of anything except these recovered memories, which are so outlandish that they're not believable except by people who want to believe them. And the two guys that they're accusing, now he's only accused a little bit, if you want to call it a little bit, and he's accused a lot. So I will get into that now, as to what the two women claim and why they failed they lost their appeal because they weren't believed. And I'll get into the book and you'll see what I'm talking about. But all right, let's go here. Well, this is an issue because I talked about before, that psychopathy. One of the behaviors of female psychopaths can be that they want attention. That's Munchausen's. And I do believe that there may be Munchausen involved in this, or schizophrenia, or both, or I've got a bunch of other things I'm going to suggest as possibilities for the personality issues. Let's see. How did they not even consider a serial? Caitlin, I think the police did. It's just that when the keepers came out, that whole concept vanished because they're so intent on saying Sister Cathy was going to rat out his incredible abuse of these women and all the teenage girls at the time. He's going to rat them out so badly that he had those girls killed. He killed them. And he even took one of the women, now she says when she was a teen, took her to see the body of Sister Cathy, and it was covered with maggots on her face. And I will get into that and how ridiculous this is. I mean, just such nonsense. Okay. Let me refer to, because I want to give this guy credit, because, yeah. Let me read you. I want to read you from the article okay, let me find it. Let me find the article. Okay. All right. This is, okay, the first one I want to point out is, let me just read you the story. This comes, well, this is Pendergrass. Okay, this is from Mark Pendergrass, who I said, I give credit because he's got the guts to actually speak up and say, this is nonsense. So here he is. This is Mark Pendergrass. All right. Let me read to you from his. The Keepers, a wildly popular 7-part documentary series aired by Netflix in May of 2017, promotes the theory of repressed memories by resurrecting and validating a previously dismissed Baltimore case from the early 1990s. The case was dismissed. I'm going to read to you from the actual case in a minute. The show relies heavily on recovered memories of abuse to convince viewers that the now deceased Catholic priest Joseph Maskell, this is Father Joseph Maskell, or another priest known only as Brother Bob. Not this guy. He plays into a different role in this whole thing. But a guy named Brother Bob, who for whatever reasons, Jean Wehner, who says that Brother Bob was the one that might have killed Cathy Sesnik, might have, can't quite get the visualization right about who he is. They murdered a young nun named Cathy Sesnik in 1969 in order to prevent the nun, an English teacher, from reporting sexual abuse of high school students at Keogh High School in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, I want to point out this thing about where Wehner tries to say that Sister Cathy was going to rat out Father Maskell. How is she? The only information we have that Sister Cathy even knew anything about what he was doing to the girls comes from Wehner herself. We have no other corroborating information that she knew anything about anything or was going to do anything about anything. And when she says, "Oh, this is what Cathy said to me," she's making that stuff up. You have to believe her words. She said, "Cathy said this, and I said that, and Cathy said this." But these are recovered memories. These aren't even things she remembers. These are recovered memories. All right. So the show, so it goes on. The series is dramatic, artfully constructed, and based on real events, but it is extremely misleading, especially in accepting without question the validity of repressed memories. This is what bugs me. You're going to do a documentary and you don't even question whether people are telling the truth, and you don't look back at the court data that says they're not telling the truth, because I'm going to show you they're not telling the truth. And then I'm going to go read her book, and you're going to see how wacky this woman is. The Keepers pervades all the old stereotypes, including a psychologist who explains confidently, "Some things we experience are so unbearable and so painful that we shut them out." The popular series could undo years of good memory science in the public arena. The star of the Keepers series is Jean Hargadon Wehner, known as Jane Doe. Keep Jane Doe in mind, because I'm going to read you from the legal stuff. Jane Doe and Jane Roe. Those are the two women that I showed you. There we are, Jane Doe and Jane Roe. Okay, they are the ones that basically the whole document is about. They threw in a few other people, but basically it's about their claiming what they claim, and both of whatever they claim is completely trashed in the legal documents. Now, the stars Jean Wehner, known as Jane Doe, in the dismissed lawsuit, who was a student at Keogh High School, a private Catholic school, from 1967 to 1971. She had no abuse memories until she reached adulthood, but beginning in 1981, the year after the publication of Michelle Remembers, the first blockbuster book about repressed memories and satanic ritual abuse, she begins to see some counselors and therapists, including massage and movement therapists. And I'm going to read you from her book. You're not going to believe what I'm going to read from the book. You got to hang in if you're interested in this. She learned to put herself in a prayerful trance, which she called, quote, dialoguing with the inner child. And boy, does she have a lot of inner children. A kind of pseudo multiple personality state in which she identifies various internal child personalities named Jeannie, Beth, Gloria, Ethel, and Martha, each of whom apparently held different abuse memories. And let me show you the books that he's talking about that she probably learned from. It's these 3 books. You remember Sybil? I'm going to do. Somebody sent me that was wonderful. They sent me a book, the Sybil anti-Sybil book. There's a Sybil and there's an anti-Sybil book that was all being made up. And I did intend to do a show on that. So whoever sent that to me, I just can't remember your name right off bat, but I know who you are. But I will do that eventually. This book came out into multiple personalities that have been basically debunked. Now, here we have The Courage to Heal. And this is all about how, and this became an 80s thing about how we're unable to deal with things. So then we have this is satanic panic, and everybody else is whenever you have some issues in your life, it's probably because you're disconnecting from these things, and then you have to do all these methodologies to bring back the memories. And then there's this book called Michelle Remembers, which she just I won't even get into Michelle Remembers, but unbelievable nonsense. Anyway, so Michelle Remembers was the first book about repressed memories and satanic ritual abuse. Anyway, so she learns to put herself in these trances. During the 1980s, she recovers memories of how her uncle and an array of strangers abused her from age 3 to 12. So she remembers. Now, mind you, there weren't any issues prior to that. She had a job, she got married, she had kids, and supposedly now she has these memories. Oh, my uncle did all these things to me since I was 3 years old. I'm going to read you from her book, the nonsense she says about her uncle, just crazy stuff. So this is typical of false, quote, massive repression memories with a ritual abuse flavor. And one of the things you're going to find is that whenever these people go into these things that happen to them, the weird ritual abuse and the bizarre things that I just read to you in the other case, right? The cockroaches and the eating human eyeballs and people killing babies and children, babies and dogs and stuff. That's the kind of weird stuff they inject. That's how you know it's false, because that stuff doesn't work that way. So when they can't seem to go with something basic, they have to keep elaborating. And she also recalled that this uncle abused her 10 siblings, although none of them remember it. During the 1990s, Wehner read an array of popular books about repressed memories, and no doubt including The Courage to Heal. And in 1992, she began therapy with PhD psychologist Norman Bradford, who had her keep a dream journal. So in 1992 is where all this stuff started to come to a head. Shortly afterwards, she began to retrieve her first memories of priest abuse, starting with Father Neil Magnus. Okay, remember the priest I was showing you? Okay, let's go to the two priests that this is Magnus. Father Neil Magnus, whom she envisioned masturbating while he took her confession. So now she says she goes in to confess, and she talks about her uncle abusing her when she was a child. So while he says, tell me your name and tell me what really happened. And while she's telling what really happened, he's masturbating. But she knows, she can see it. When she discovered that he was dead because he had died, then she stopped talking about him too much. And she switched to retrieving her memories from abuse from another priest, Joseph Maskell, who had been her high school counselor. She eventually recalled vaginal and anal rape, sometimes with a vibrator, oral sex, enemas, him putting a gun in her mouth, and forced prostitution. Just some crazy stuff. But her sex abuse memories expanded dramatically beyond Maskell to include 2 policemen, 3 high school teachers, a local politician who practiced a political speech while she performed oral sex on him. I guess he wanted to make sure he could concentrate, no matter who was in front of him, he could concentrate on his speech and not be distracted. I guess that was his practice for that. 3 more priests, Father Schmidt, Father John, and Father Daniels, 4 religious brothers, Brother Tim, Brother Bob, Brother Frank, and Brother Ed, 2 religious sisters, Nancy and Russell, and another religious brother known only as Mr. Teeth, who read from the book of Psalms as he had sex with her. Wehner also remembered that she herself killed an unidentified nun at the school. If you think this woman is okay and is telling the truth, you need to think again. Yet the millions of people who have viewed The Keepers did not learn of many of these background facts. Netflix is notorious for keeping viewer numbers secret, but they reveal, okay, this is 20 million viewers. Netflix is not unethical. They do some good stuff occasionally, because they get a show in that actually is good. So I do still watch Netflix because sometimes there's something that's really good. This was not one of them, and they don't care. That's the whole point. What viewers see is that Jean Hargadon Wehner seems to be an attractive, sensitive, self-assured woman. That's true. She comes across very calm, the whole thing, with a supportive, wholesome family, and that she claims to have recovered memories of abuse by Father Maskell and a few others. A few. Probably half the town, including police officers. And mind you, she is the daughter of a police officer. If you were this priest and you were going to pick on some kid that you wanted to sexually assault, would you pick the daughter of a police officer in Baltimore who is not your buddy? Because she never said her father was involved in anything. So he's not an idiot. If he's going to involve any police officer, it would be somebody who's real close to him, not some girl. Pick a girl whose father can come after you, find out what's going on with his daughter, and come after you. He's not an idiot, so he would never do that. So that's again nonsense that he would even choose her as a victim. Let's see. Director Ryan White, whose aunt was Wehner's high school roommate, goes out of his way to portray her memories as real. So screw you, Ryan White. How dare you? You're a director. It's your project, but you are not ethical. You know what happened in the police. You know what happened in the court. You know that most of her stuff is lies, or not all of it. And you're willing to go ahead and present it as the truth. You're not an ethical human being. He goes out of his way to portray her memories as real. After listening to her tell her story for hours, he told his producer, "This woman is telling the truth and we need to be a part of this." No, you wanted to make money. That's all. It is true that Sister Cathy Sesnik, 26, was an attractive, popular English teacher who was murdered and probably raped on November 7th, 1969. Only 3 days later, another young woman, or 4 days, 20 years old, was killed 2 miles away in a very similar fashion. It is quite likely that the same unknown person killed both of them, but the murderer probably didn't know that Sesnik was a nun or didn't care. So then, as part of her prayerful memory process, she visualized how Father Maskell had taken her to see Cathy Sesnik's body and that her face had been crawling with maggots. And she said she must have known that she would immediately repress the memory, just as she allegedly forgot her rapes every time the door clicked as soon as she was leaving the office. DNA did not match him to the scene. She claims that he took her there specifically to say, "Look, this is what happened to Sister. Don't you talk too?" And she said, and she got down on her knees and brushed the maggots off of her face. Get out of here. If there were maggots running around her face, I'm pretty sure that you knew she was solidly dead and we're not going to touch her. And people say, "Oh my God, she knew there were maggots," because the police originally said there weren't because it was winter, but they found maggots in her throat. So they're like, "Oh, she knew something." That no, maggots are one of those cool things you can say, one of those creepy things you can say when you talk about a dead body. And remember, she fantasizes a lot of stuff. And if she's going to fantasize something, she's going to throw maggots on that body too. So it's meaningless and it's garbage. There's no way he takes her out there and says, "Look what I do to people." So he shows her the body dump site, shows her the dead thing, and he hopes that she's not going to go home and tell her cop daddy, "Get out of here." Even if he thinks he got control over her and is scaring her, he doesn't need to do that. That's just nonsense, absolute nonsense. It just blows my mind because it's so stupid. As background, readers should know that in the late 1980s and 1990s, that was the height of the epidemic of false memory of childhood sexual abuse, fomented by this misguided pseudo-scientific form of psychotherapy. I agree with that. It doesn't mean people haven't suffered from horrible childhood sexual abuse. It just means that this whole concept that you don't remember anything for 20 years and you suddenly remember it is very concerning, that you would be able to then create these memories. And you're going to see when I read you from the book how frightening it is, because anybody can create fiction. You create it in your dreams. You can create it in your daydreams. You can create it when you want to be somebody or feel something or say somebody did something to you, or because you want to make a lot of money in a lawsuit, whatever it is. So let's see. He's got a whole bunch of other stuff here. I'm going to link this one below because it's an excellent article, and he's, I say, only one of two that said anything. Let me just quickly. I want to quickly let you know who the other article was, and that I was pleased that they referenced this one, because they were like, "Oh my God, somebody else actually said something," and they linked his article. So that was excellent. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, where'd it go? I'm also going to link a bunch of other things that just you might find interesting. I know it's the media report. Okay, that's that one of the media report. Where's the rest of it? Okay, hold on. Oh, I wanted to give them some credit. I'm going to be annoyed if I can't give them credit. But it was from the media report, which I'm going to read from. I'm going to read what they put the the case online. So I would definitely want to read that, but I just wanted to give them credit for, oh, here we go. Found it. Because I do want to give them credit. I'm going to link it. Netflix's The Keeper, agenda-driven. Remember I talked about things being agenda-driven? Agenda-driven filmmaking exploits a nun's murder. The 1969 unsolved disappearance and murder of a Baltimore nun, Sister Cathy Sesnik, certainly has all the makings of a compelling whodunit. Who killed Sister Cathy? The trailer asks. But, however, The Keepers is a multi-part they put quotes on, documentary about the case airing on Netflix is nothing but a bleary-eyed scavenger hunt, trafficking and speculation, innuendo, rumor, discredited science, and a healthy heap of anti-Catholic bigotry. Anyone looking for an honest and clear-thinking analysis of the case will not find it here. And they go on further. And then it says, it does point out here that the court documents, Wehner has not just claimed that Reverend Maskell abused her in her life, but also claims that she was abused by 4 additional priests, 3 or 4 religious brothers, 3 lay teachers, a police officer, a local politician, uncle and 2 nuns, and a partridge in a pear tree. Sorry, I couldn't help but go there. Oh my God. I mean, really. Oh my gosh. And then it goes on to say that they talk about Mark Pendergast. They said that check out his they give a link to him, which I really appreciate, because a lot of times people don't give credit to people who come up with stuff, and I love to give credit to other people, because it's like, it's not just me, it's other people. I want I don't, if they come up with the same things I have or even better, good. I mean, I want it out there. All right, so, but anyway, so then they put it here. They said, on the same day we published our post, bigtrial.net published an excellent post by writer Mark Pendergast, The Dangerously Misleading Narrative of the Keepers. Check it out. I give him credit on it. So I'm going to put both of those links up. And I want to read you now from the actual legal stuff. So you will see that both women are lying, Jane Doe and Jane Roe. And then I'm going to go to her book, and it's going to blow you away. When I say this woman is suffering from either, let's see, what do I want to say? She's suffering from possible Munchausen's for attention. Again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm not diagnosing anybody. So Dr. Das, just keep that in mind. Anyway, but there is a number of things she could be suffering from. And I say her, she's the other one. This is just with Jane Doe, which is Rayner, and this is Jane Roe, because I give them these little names. Both of them are recovered memories, but hers are the most egregious. And she only came up with them because of her. So that's my opinion. And but she has had a long history of this kind of nonsense. And I think it's either a Munchausen thing, but which is a behavioral psychopathy, or she's got some kind of psychotic issues, some schizophrenia of some sort. But there's another thing she could be suffering from, which I wanted to bring out before. Let's see, hold on a second. That's just somebody's. Okay, these are great opinions. A woman who experiences recurring intense sexual arousal from bizarre, perverted fantasies being acted upon her may have a paraphilic disorder. In other words, these perverted fantasies, they're bizarre. That's the whole point. Bizarre. It's not just normal stuff. It's weird stuff. Specifically, this could manifest as sexual masochism disorder, enjoying being subjected to painful or humiliating acts. Everything she's talking about is painful and humiliating. Or sexual sadism. That's not her. She's not inflicting on others. It is also possible she might experience other paraphilic disorders such as voyeurism, and that doesn't seem to be true either. But fetishism, she's got a lot of fetishism in all of the objects she says are used. I think she suffers from possibly sexual masochism disorder. That's a paraphilia where everybody is doing things to her. The priests are doing things. The police are doing things. They're doing every kind of weird act to her. And you're going to hear some of the most ludicrous stuff. Her uncle, the stuff he does to her is what they say, bizarre perverted fantasies, not normal perverted fantasies, bizarre perverted fantasies. She's got issues. That's my opinion. I don't believe anything she says, and I have trouble believing anything she says too. Other people may have had some issues with a priest, may have been sexually assaulted by him or abused in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying that couldn't be true, or other priests or whatever. But I don't think any of these, what these two said, ever happened. I don't even know if they hardly remembered the guy until they had their recovered memories. Let's look at the legal stuff, and then I'm going to read from the book. All right. So, that's Teresa Lancaster is her name, by the way. I don't think they said too much of what, okay, that was a different one. Let me find the meter. Okay, here we go. Court of Appeals. This is Jane Doe versus A. Joseph Maskell. Okay, so now they're reviewing what she says. All right. Doe claims she was sexually abused during high school years and that such abuse abated upon her matriculation in 1971. Doe claims she repressed those memories until recently, which is like 25 years, 21 years. However, Doe admits that some of these repressed and recovered memories have proved to be verifiably false, such as her belief derived solely from her recovered memory that she had killed a religious sister at her school. Additionally, she wrote in her diary at one point that her, quote, recovered memories of abuse by a priest were bullcrap. This is in the docket. This is an admission she made to the courts. Doe admits she was subjected to another earlier sexually abusive relationship in which her uncle and many other strangers at his direction sexually abused her. I'll get into that in her book, but one of the things she says is that her 3 years older, her uncle started sexually abusing and raping her, and then he brought her to this like bar, and he would stand at the door and have her go into the bar and have other men sexually assault her. And later on, she says, that's what Maskell did too, Father Maskell. That's why I brought it back to me. He also would stand there and watch police officers sexually assaulting me. He would stand guard. And so I trusted the men standing guard while they allowed people to abuse me. Just, again, bizarre nonsense. She believes her siblings were sexually abused by the same uncle, despite their assertions to the contrary. Doe's first, quote, recovered memories of abuse, which initially rose in early 1980s during prayer and self-dialoguing experiences, were committed by her uncle. These memories continued until she was in therapy through the 1980s. She claimed that the, quote, recovered memories of abuse that allegedly occurred with a priest in high school did not arise until 1992. During deposition, she stated that shortly after, quote, recovery of new memories of priestly abuse by a Father Magnus, that was the first one she said was masturbating while she gave her confession. She learned that he had died, and soon after she ceased having new memories of the priestly abuse alleged had been committed by him. And she started dialoguing with her inner child therapy. She noted in her prayer journal that Father Magnus is dead and that she and or one of her inner children would have to tell on Father Maskell, the other one, right? This is the last reference to Father Magnus in her prayer journal. So when he was no longer useful because he was dead, she moved on. Doe's list of alleged sexual abusers is not merely limited to the late Father Magnus and Father Maskell, but include a police officer in uniform, at least 3 lay teachers in her high school, Mr. Carpenter, a Mr. Silk Handkerchief, a Mr. Mimi DiPietro, a local politician allegedly practicing a political speech while she was performing oral sex on him. Doe also recalls abuse by 3 additional priests, Father Schmidt, Father John, Father Daniel, religious brothers Tim, Bob, Frank, and Ed, religious sisters Nancy and Russell, who allegedly were cloaked in traditional nuns' habit while engaging in their abuse, and a religious brother referred to her only as Mr. Teeth, who read from the Book of Psalms while had her performing sexual acts. Additionally, she admitted that she felt that her memory that Sister Russell and Sister Nancy wearing their full habits as I participated in the abuse was absurd and almost impossible to accept. So even she said some of her stuff was nonsense. Doe's memories of varied abuse arose in connection with some sort of therapy. Her, quote, recovery of memories of abuse by priests and others in high school arose during self-therapy known as diagnosing with her own inner child. Brother Breeze, her spiritual director beginning in 1981, introduced her to this practice, which she used to access and recover memories. She worked hard to recover God knows how many memories. In other words, and I'm going to see when you hear from her book, you're going to see how she basically is writing these stories. She's writing them. She's fictionalizing. She's imagining them. She's fantasizing them. There's no way to believe that these things actually happened to her. She felt, she saw numerous other therapists and counselors in the 1980s. She's in counseling for years and years and years. Okay. She felt that she was possessed by an evil force for about 6 months. Some memories of childhood sexual abuse, as well as teenage psychological disorders, surfaced during, quote, massage therapy or movement therapy in the 1990s. Doe read several books that dealt with repression of memory of childhood sexual abuse before recovering her memories of sexual abuse by priests. Then she had a dream journal, and she recovered more sexual things with a dream journal with a Dr. Bradford, and she had a dialoguing process. She admitted she could not say at what point in time she repressed or lost her memories of these alleged abuse of these priests and other people. She now has recovered. That's her stuff. That's on that. This is in the legal documents. Okay. The other court document says the appellant, Jane Roe, which is her. Okay. And her is now a lawyer, Lancaster, Teresa. All right. Roe's claims are based on alleged recovered memories of sexual abuse inflicted by from 1970 to 1972. Prior to recovering the allegedly repressed memories in 1993 to 1994, again, 20 years later, she recovered memories too. She maintained a continuous and ongoing constant memory of specific instances of abuse allegedly committed by all these people. She regarded the recovery of her new memories, her testimony, her new memories are hopelessly confusing and inconsistent. She testified that following the discovery of a hypodermic needle and rolling papers in her purse by her parents, on October 5th, 1970, they met with Father Maskell, a guidance counselor at the Archbishop Keogh High School. It was during her first meeting with Father Maskell that she alleges a pattern of continual sexual abuse began. This is recovered memories from 20 years later. Over the next 2 years, until June 1972, when she graduated from high school, she testified based on her ongoing memories that she was repeatedly undressed by Father Maskell, forced to sit on his lap in his office, and that while she was naked, she was caressed and fondled. Then she was subjected to invasive vaginal examinations and the administration by Father Maskell of suppositories. And she said sometimes when this was happening, another student was present. So also understand, during the school day, in his office, he's like undressing girls, sticking things in them, raping them, doing all those things, having the police come in and rape them. There's tons of people involved in this. Never have any of the parents said their children came home with bruises on their bodies, bleeding because they were virgins and they were like then raped, no blood, no bruises. Nobody's getting pregnant. Oh, wait a minute. I take that back. She said she got pregnant once and he took her to an abortionist and forced her to have an abortion. This is the nonsense that's out there. Absolutely ridiculous. She characterized this one. He said also she, let's see. Her continuous and ongoing constant memory is that Father Maskell's participation in first gynecological visit during which he allegedly touched her breasts and vaginal area. She characterized her ongoing memories as being always there and very real, but she didn't remember them for 20 years. Why is that? So, I mean, somebody who claimed to say that he did some time as attend because he was a counselor and whatever. He's a psychologist. He did attend some of these things where they got medical exams. It may have been in the room, which he shouldn't have been. This is true. So I'm not saying there's something creepy about him, but I remember when I was 19 years old, coming from I was out for the evening and I had some breathing problem and I went to one of these quick clinics and the doctor took me in there and he wanted to do a breast exam for my breathing problems. I remember that perfectly clearly. There was no I didn't repress anything. I'm like, I walked out and showed that woman in the front, said, "Your doctor's a pervert. You better not send me a bill on that thing. That guy's a pervert. He touched my breasts and gave me a breast exam for my breathing problems." I was pissed. I remember that. I remember a few other things that happened to me in my life. I never repressed anything. They were there. Now, some of you are going to say, well, you can't, but maybe you're just stronger. Other people have to repress. Maybe they do, but this is outrageous nonsense. Both of them 20 years later come up with similar things. And I'll tell you why they came up with them 20 years later together. All right. Anyway, she graduates from society. She has children. Everything's fine. She never received any medical or psychological treatment for any of her mental conditions until 1994 when she was referred to a psychologist. How did this all come about then? Okay. I'm trying to find the part where it came out. Nobody reported their abuse. Oh, here we go. It was not until October of 1993 when Roe responded to an advertisement regarding alleged abuse at Keogh High School. That was coming from her lawyers. And they put out they put out letters to all the students. Let's see if I have that one picture. Thought I had the picture. I forgot to put it up here. But there was literally an advertisement in the newspapers, and then her lawyers just sent out tons of things. Said, if you've ever been abused, call us. And this is what I've told you oftentimes. It comes from the defense attorneys that they put this information out to hundreds and hundreds of people. And you always get a few people who go, I always hated that dude. I'm going to call up and say he touched me too. So this is where things become questionable. So she responded to an advertising regarding alleged abuse. And after learning of the counselor was representing other persons who alleged similar types of abuse, the new memories suddenly surfaced. The evidence adduced at the hearing demonstrated that Rose's versions of events regarding the recovery of repressed memories was hopelessly confused and inconsistent. And sometimes a new memory was recovered and changed at least 3 times. She couldn't identify any of the dates that these things materialized. It says here, the recovery of Rose's alleged repressed memories of the rapes by the priests and so occurred after a consultation with attorneys. After responding to an advertisement, she was contacted, and then she met with them, and then she disclosed these ongoing memories. So anyway, they said, screw you. This is just nonsense. So they're like, yeah, we don't buy any of this nonsense. So that was the end of that. Later on, I mean, I guess diocese, whatever, paid out a bunch of money to a whole bunch of women who make claims, and some of them may be true. But these two, don't believe them as far as I can throw them. And now I will get to her book. I'm going to check your comments first. It's amazing how they materialize. Yeah, a little unreasonable. Yeah. I was abused by deep pockets. Oh my God. And again, it's not that this hasn't happened. So don't conflate those two things. Just because some people have been abused doesn't mean that these people have been abused. That's the difference. And what their issues were, I think she's had a lifetime of trying to gain attention. She, I think, might have saw money. I don't know. I don't know what the issues are. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm not diagnosing them here, but I don't believe their stories. And I don't think anybody else should believe their stories either. Oh, that's interesting. Sarah says she likes attention, paraphilias, and making others uncomfortable. I think she gets that sense of power and control, which could be psychopathy. Because when you want to see people's reactions and have people go, oh my God, and then they're, it's so creepy. But she's enthralling people. She's getting something out of it. She's nuttier than a squirrel house. You haven't heard the book yet. I haven't even gotten to the book yet. Yeah, let me get to the book. A couple core comments, and I'll get to the book. I'm going to try stamp collecting therapy. There's an idea. Oh, Lord. Sarah says, what if her inner child is a pathological liar who likes BDSM and attention and making people feel uncomfortable? Well, her inner child could be those satanic beasts, you know what I mean? But say, when you hear the book, you're just not going to, oh my God. So let me go to the book. Because this is where you're going to see what I'm talking about. And anybody who's still hanging around, I know, so it gets to be a long video, and it is. Oh my God, it's like been almost 2 hours. But I'm going to read for you from the book, just because those who truly are interested in, is she telling the truth, and should I believe her? This will be, this will help you out here. Now, I'm going to look for just some of my notes. Okay, so this is her. Okay, wait a minute. Let me start at the beginning. Forward. Walking with Alethea is her book, Most Credible Journey. Somebody wrote Most Credible Journey. No, it was not credible at all. With the sexual abuse she received first by a great uncle and then by a network of pedophile priests and others from her Catholic high school. Her disassociation from this horrible sexual abuse lasted until age 27, where she gradually began to remember the repressed memories and started a healing journey. Okay, sexual abuse began at the age of 3 at the hands of her great uncle. She'd spend some overnight weekends with him, the aunt and uncle. And then when she went to Keogh High School in 1967, when she was 14, she had 3 more years of abuse by the clergy, especially that particular father, right? All right. And then it ended when she left, blah, blah, blah. All right. Now let me go into this. All right. Jean relates her experiences during her quiet with spirit guides who were her protectors. Imagination comes from beyond the 5 sentences. Yeah, it was imagination, all right. And thus comes from within the person. It reflects an important personal dimension. Therefore, all images that arise in her quiet are parts of her and spirit guides. Such visions often open the door to the past or are predictors of the future, but the visions frequently reflect progress and working towards some goal. These are visions. These aren't facts. These are visions. All right. Many of the guides are protectors of Jean's personas. Yes, of course. This is where you get like, Sybil-y thing. Okay. All right. I'm going to get out of I attempt to summarize many of these ways: dream work, hypnotic and ecstatic trance, guided imagery, free association, waking morning reverie, and self-hypnosis. Jean's quiet opens for her the door to her unconscious, uncovering unconscious repressed memories and providing a map for healing. This is the introduction. Okay, let's see what she has to say. I have lived with the reality of having been sexually abused from the ages of 3 through 17. This book is how I survived this, blah, blah. I'm amazed I haven't killed myself. I'm able to live a normal life. Yeah, considering what you've been through, it is pretty amazing. Although what you describe isn't a normal life. And I wonder about all the people around you who put up with this stuff for years. All right. Sometimes there are personas who emanate from my heart and mind. These are subconscious aspects of myself created by me as a young girl, which held the trauma I experienced. So she is saying that she is creating these things, but it's because of her trauma. The personas are my coping mechanisms, which have developed organically. While working with these personas in these meditative vignettes, I understand who I am, where I am, and the plane I'm living on as an adult. Other times, experiencing types of spontaneous spiritual imagery, I'm assisted by guides who take various forms, including a tiger, a snake, an owl, and individuals. I believe these symbols, guides, are similar to the cross for Roman Catholics. And then she goes on about the Greek gods. Okay, so that's how the name of the book came up. Anyway, let's see. Innocence abducted. All right. Starting when I was 3 years old, my great aunt Kitty, now mind you, she's like saying horrible things about her aunt and uncle. Horrible. She's destroying their reputation, and she doesn't seem to have an issue with that, or the reputations of anybody else. Starting with when I was 3 years old, my great aunt Kitty, who was my maternal grandmother's sister and was close to my mother, would have a bunch of us kids over for a weekend 3 times a year. They were special for us kids because they were a big family and they didn't get these treats usually. We got to eat big bowls of ice cream, watch shoot 'em up cowboy shows, stay up late, drink coffee, and sleep in the living room if we wanted, have lavish bubble baths, and gamble with pennies, playing a board game called Pocono. These were activities we seldom engaged in at home, which is why the weekends were so special. And Katie and Tim had no children of their own. And she got special gifts. These are nice people who are doing something nice. Okay. On Saturdays, blah, 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 the boys are in the yard. Oh, yeah, here we go. Tom, the uncle, would take me to the basement to sexually abuse me. He would also do so at night when he would wake me and cart me to the cellar. Their family dog, Queenie, was always with him, including the trips to the basement. Okay, so she's been taken down to the basement. Okay. Oh, and here this is one of these bizarre things I talked about, that this did not happen. Give me 500 Alex for things that never happened. Right? When I got downstairs, they handed me a present. Sitting on the floor, I felt the box move and immediately thought it was a puppy. When I took the top off, I was shocked to find myself staring at a white rat, which, by the way, is a nice present for a kid. Personally, my daughter had rats. I mean, I love rats. My joy turned to disgust in a heartbeat. Why? Because rats are cute, kids. It looks like, a mouse, a gerbil, a hamster, a rat. It's like, oh, it's so cute. But her joy turned to disgust in a heartbeat. He then molested me, Tom, in the basement, holding the rat over my bare belly. He said afterwards, if I didn't do what I was told, he would not have to pull that rat out again. Again, stupidest story ever. Doesn't make sense to me. Garbage. That's a bizarre ideation. She has some, I don't know. Do you think it's exciting to have people hold animals over you while you have sex? I don't know. At times, my uncle would threaten me if I didn't do what I was told. He would bring other siblings down to the basement. So she, of course, protected her siblings, which some people do. That's not unreasonable to think that he would say, don't talk about what I do to you because I'll do it to them. That is okay. I'll go with that. Not that I think he said that, because I don't think any of this is true, but that's a reasonable thing that somebody might actually say. But then we get into this. On our drive home, Tom would take all the children to a bar called the Green Door. He did so despite the aunt chiding him not to take him to that place as we were leaving. At some point, Tom began taking me to the back room and allowing other adults to molest me. I remember his large figure standing by the door, listening and watching. At first, I looked at Tom, hoping he would make the smelly man stop. When Tom did not stop the abuse, I began looking to him for protection in the event the stranger began to hurt me in even more serious ways. But now I am sure he was keeping a lookout so that no one walked in on us. When leaving the bar, Tom would purchase a 6-pack of beer and situate the beers one at a time between his legs on the drive home. I always sat in the middle of the front seat. So now he's just like the priest. He's taking her and he's blocking the door so other people can molest her. So I guess when she gets home and mommy says, let's get in the bathtub, he doesn't notice that she's been raped and abused. Yeah, get out of here. I believe I stopped going to my aunt's house when I was 12 when I had my first menstrual period. I got upset and tried to stop it with some tissue. When my uncle got into my bed that night, intending to abuse me, I guess now it's not the basement, he found the bloody toilet paper between my legs and said, "You've ruined everything." He told me to sleep on the floor with the dog while he stayed in the bed. I was upset and confused. I didn't understand why I was being rejected. And he meant that she could now get pregnant, so now I couldn't rape her anymore. Alrighty. Let's see. Okay, now she's going to Magnus. Years later, she's going to Magnus. And she wanted to tell him what happened. Then the priest asked if he could look directly at me and ask my name. I was shocked by his request. At that time, the priest normally sat with his ear to the anonymous layperson kneeling on the other side of the screen. We were taught that if you confess, you're speaking directly to God. The screen helps you focus less on the priest, creating a sense of anonymity. I felt I had no choice, so I said, "You can look at me. My name is Jeannie." Father Magnus turned to me, he looked me in my face, and began asking me about the behavior I just confessed. I could not believe what was happening, nor I could process all my emotions. He sat so close, and yet the priest must have been sitting that close. Why hadn't I noticed it before? And then I became aware he was masturbating. Sure. All right. Now, to this day, when I think of this experience, I feel like I'm shrinking. I don't know where this one came from. Back into the corner of a coffin, which over time has become riddled with holes, each one large enough to fit an erect penis. I was now his captive. This is the bizarre paraphilic ideation. Who thinks of being stuck in a coffin with holes in it where penises are being put through? Who thinks of that? That's not repressed memory. That's your fantasies. Okay. So then she remembered that Magnus told her to come to the office and sit on his lap. And to cleanse herself, I was to perform fellatio on him and swallow the Holy Spirit upon his ejaculation. He referred to his semen as the Eucharist or body of Christ. I was naive, terrified, indoctrinated to the godliness and superiority of priests and conditioned to the past abuse. So I did as I was told. I assumed I deserved this since I was guilty about the information I had shared. He would call me a whore, cow, slut, and a sinner. And he and Magnus, this is when Maskell gets invited into the office now. So now, see, it started with Magnus, and now he's bringing Maskell in. And so now they're both in there with him. 2 grown men in black loomed over me, a young, terrified girl sitting in a chair, and they raped her, you see. During these meetings, I was sexually abused and otherwise terrorized into silence. At one session, Maskell appeared frustrated with my lack of participation. So I went to the file cabinet and took something from the drawers. He demanded I take my underwear off and proceeded to use a vibrator on me. I cried for him to stop. Oh, she's crying heavily so that when people walk by the office, they can hear a girl in there crying, "No, stop," and nobody does anything. My crying did stop when the weapon in his hand took effect. This tool was deliberately used to induce an unwanted, involuntary sexual response. While calling me hateful names, I was forced to do fellatio on him when I was leaving his office. So he told me that if I did what I was told, he wouldn't use the tool on me again. And he said, "You hated that, and I'm glad." So he used tools like this vibrator, a dog collar, a leash, enemas, a penknife, a gun, and a wooden paddle with holes. He used Catholic rituals, drugs, hypnosis, and brainwashing techniques on me. He recited hypnotic phrases like, I only want what's best for you, just what's best for you. He planted suggestions in my mind like the sound of a click of his door closing as I left his office, and then caused everything to go blank. He would sit across from me and quickly flip through pictures of deformed individuals like a woman with leprosy, a young boy without a penis, a person without a tongue, and he would repeat, you see what happens when you say bad things about people? I remember Magnus taking pictures of me with my blouse unbuttoned, and Maskell and Magnus showing me albums of children dressed in adult lingerie in very suggestive poses. Maskell invited other teachers, police officers, a politician, and other adults from outside the school into this environment. He took me and other students to the local gynecologist. You've run by all this. Okay. What else is going on here? Maskell was a leader of a sex ring which was exploiting young girls. I was one of a number of girls who were subjected to sexual assault at the hands of adults within and outside Keogh. While I do not intend to go through all the sordid details, but you'd love to do that, don't you? Laid out in the investigations and the keepers, I can say that I and the other girls trapped in this ring felt abandoned, helpless, and doomed. A big criminal syndicate. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now at some point after the abuse started, an English teacher named Sister Cathy Sesnik began asking me and others about what might be happening in the chaplain's office. That's only her word. Cathy never said anything about that to anybody. Cathy was in her mid-20s, blah, blah. And then he said, oh, get this. I first remembered Cathy in 1993. She didn't remember Cathy. So this is a woman she confided with and that got murdered, but she didn't remember her till 1993. After I was shown a yearbook picture by a classmate, I recognized her on some level. Then I remembered that on the last day of my sophomore year, I went to retrieve a book from her classroom. She was the only other person in there. She began talking with me. As I walked toward her, standing in the front of the room, she started asking me how I felt at Keogh. I told her I really don't like Keogh. I was very aware of what I was saying and that she was listening. That felt very good. Looking me in the eyes, Sister Cathy sat down and asked me, what could be so bad? And I responded, I can't talk about it. As I stood facing her, she said, fine, you don't need to talk about it. I'll ask questions and you nod your head yes or no. Sister Cathy then asked me, is somebody doing something to you that you don't want them to? Looking at the floor, I nodded yes. She continued, is someone hurting you? I nodded yes. She asked me, is it someone I would know or be acquainted with? I shook my head and nodded yes. Jeannie, is it the priest? I looked up into her eyes and made a slight nod, and she said, Jesus, I expected as much. She's taking the Lord's name in vain. Sister Cathy hugged me and assured me that I was not to worry. I could still feel her warm embrace, what you forgot about for 20 years. She told me to enjoy the summer and would take care of the situation. I felt I had been just bared my soul in the light of day, and I was drinking in the warmth and joy. Wow, she remembers a lot for a person she doesn't even remember existed. Okay, she didn't return to Keogh. She didn't. She took a job in a public school, so she wasn't even there anymore. There's no evidence she went to anybody. Sister Cathy never talked to anybody, told anybody anything. She simply left that place and went to work in a public school as a nun. That's it. So the only words you ever get that Cathy was going to tell the father about the father to anybody is coming from this woman, and who didn't remember Cathy for 20 years, but suddenly, because she saw her picture, thought, I remember her talking to me now. All right. Let's see. On return from vacation, Maskell called me to his office, which was different than our previous regularly scheduled counseling arrangements. I had let him believe that Sister Cathy had taken care of this and that these appointments were over. I cautiously entered. He was furious. He said someone approached him during the summer saying he was hurting all the girls. And I sat in his office chair looking at the floor. And he said, you didn't tell someone I was hurting the girls, did you? Looking up at him, I felt terror creep over me. He knew. Feeling like a deer in headlights, totally alone and cornered, I denied it was me. As I sat shaking in his office chair with him towering over me dressed in black, he said, you don't seem to understand. You're the one doing these things in the room that you shouldn't be talked about, not me. Maskell went over to the drawer and pulled out a vibrator, saying, I think it's time to reacquaint you with our little toy. Turning my head away, I began to cry, saying, please don't use that. I promise I won't tell. Please don't do it. He put his hand under my chin, turned my face toward him, and said, it's too late. You already did tell. Now you have to be punished. And he raped me with a vibrator and forced me to perform fellatio on him. And my little girl in my side said, I hate him and I hate him and I hate me. And then she left the office. And then 2 months later, Cathy disappeared. And then he brought her into the office and said, you want to see her? And took her to the location and said, And that's when she saw Cathy lying there in a heap with maggots on her face, and she brushed the maggots off. Okay, then her baby. Then she has a baby, and her baby dies because it was that seems to be true. I mean, he was born and he wasn't breathing when he was born. He was on life support and he died. So she had really real traumatic experience. So then it said here, she begins her spiritual path, chapter 4. We're on in chapter 4. Now she starts a spiritual path. So now she's told you what the big thing is that came out in the Keepers. But now this is where you start seeing that things are not quite okay up here. There were dangers in spiritually opening myself without a mature discernment process. During times of prayer in 1979, I apparently became open to a presence that I mistook as Jesus. While the insights and inner stirrings I would normally experience were clarifying and helpful, I began following directions that were powerful and confusing at the same time. Jesus told me I was pregnant. And Jesus told me he wanted me to speak out the prayer meetings. And so I found myself asking if Jesus could speak. And then I stood up and spoke words from Jesus. So now she envisions that she has a personal, people think they have personal relations with Jesus. She thinks she's literally speaking for Jesus. So have you considered this might be the work of the devil? Somebody said. And I had a visceral reaction of blinders being ripped away from my eyes. And I felt the full impact of this truth. This controlling, confusing, and exhausting experience was not of God. At that moment, I decided to stop interacting with the presence I mistook as Jesus. So you can see she's got real psychological issues here. She spends a lot of time in prayer, meditation, all these things she's doing, and she's constantly taking in information, almost like a schizophrenic would be, and believing half of it, and then God knows what, and creating what she's creating. So anyway, she realizes she's been talking to the devil. So anyway, so it goes on. Let's see, Brother Richard. Oh, Brother Richard also helped me through the period when I began remembering being abused by my uncle. So we got Brother Richard there, and he's encouraging her to go down memory lane, or great memory lane. Those early memories came while I was alone and in prayer. So Richard's presence in my life and spiritual support was instrumental to my health walk. This was the first time I was able to remember abusive situations while connecting with a part of me as a young child. This childhood persona was Little Jeannie. So now she's getting the personality deal. Little Jeannie, let's hear about Little Jeannie. One day during meditation, this is where you understand that she's creating these visions for herself. I had an image flash before my mind I had never previously experienced, a clear image of an erect penis, unattached to anything I was contemplating, broke through my quiet. Remember that I just talked to you about? Person who has a paraphilia thing, that they have intrusive thoughts. It's almost an OCD thing, of sexual stuff that's coming at her, like penises. And we were talking about a grown woman here, but she's seeing penises popping up, not attached to anything. I could only assume it had some connection to my uncomfortable feelings with intimacy. She was having, apparently, she didn't really feel love for her husband, or she had sex with him, but she didn't feel that much for him. She said to him, sorry about that. And he said, it's okay, I love you anyway. She said, I wanted its imprint upon my brain to go away. However, that image stayed with me. And about a year later, another disturbing image flashed before my mind. That one was of me strangling a skeleton, which was extremely upsetting since I could sense intense rage going into the strangle. At that time in my life, I really didn't think, I don't know what goes on here because these are little notes I've taken. I've just copied. Let's see. Okay, so now she's got penises and she's strangling skeletons. She continues to work. With, I now thought, wait a minute. All right. Wait a minute, I got to go to the right part here. Where's the strangling? Okay. I eventually began sharing the impact of these experiences with Brother Richard, considering they arose out of my prayer. In 1983, while in my quiet, I had a breakthrough memory. I remember being in my uncle's lap. See, now she's never remembered it before, so now she remembers it. With Jesus as my companion in prayer and the direction of Brother Richard, I trusted I had the support of whatever was happening. During a later memory, I experienced my uncle asking me to touch his penis, which caused me great discomfort, both as a little girl and as an adult. I refused. My saying no seemed to end things. My mother always told me not to touch any of my brother's stingers. I was grateful that I had learned my mother's lesson well. Apparently it did not, because according to you, such a whole lot of stingers in your life. Oh my God. I now thought I understood what the images of the erect penis and the skeleton were about. My uncle had died many years ago, so I figured my strangling rage was aimed at Tom. I told Mike what I remembered. It was an aha moment for us. We talked about how it made sense of some of my previous behaviors. For example, I was not able to feel more than friendship for Mike, that's her husband. I would also pace outside my daughter's bedroom when Mike would fall asleep lying next to her after he read her nighttime story. So she's trying to analyze these visions she's having, these things that pop into her head. She's deciding herself what these things mean. As I continued to work with Brother Richard, I attended a week-long silent retreat in 1985. And then she remembered her father. That's when she remembered her uncle molesting me as a 5-year-old. I continued with the memory, trusting that Jesus was protecting me. But it was like I was experiencing this assault on my body for the first time. I was effectively transported to another time, lying on the floor of my uncle's basement, doubled over with fear and pain. I lay totally alone within this agonizing experience. And that's where she found little Jeannie on the floor of her uncle's basement. And then she got, as an adult, when she saw the uncle coming closer, she watched a beautiful white mare galloping across the blue skies with puffs of clouds. And the powerful horse came closer, and little Jeannie jumped on the back of the horse and flew away with the horsey. So for the first time, I experienced the sudden presence of a spiritual guide who would protect me. I call it the white mare. I could feel my spirit on the back of this beautiful creature soaring beyond my abused mind and body. I was also aware that little Jeannie could call upon and depend on the white mare to take her out of the basement. I was discovering that I too could call upon the spirit of the white mare and my other spirit guides when I remembered and experienced difficult times throughout my life's journey. 7 years later, when I began to remember being sexually abused by Magnus and Maskell, I went to my parents' house, and the three of us sat around the dining table, and I told them how these memories arose on the tail end of a stream of memories about abusive experiences by Tom at the bar. They offered me their love and support. Isn't that sweet? Okay. In 1986, I entered the 4-year spiritual formation program at Guadalupe. Throughout the 80s, I continued to work therapeutically and spiritually with repressed memories of childhood sexual abuse by my uncles and the loss of our first baby. Then she did not want to go to the Keogh's fourth 5-year reunion, and she understandably wondered why. Oh, Cathy. Who's Cathy? Okay, not that Cathy's dead. So some other Cathy. She didn't want to go to her high school reunion. At the first it was discussed, I brushed it off as by quickly telling her I just didn't care to go to reunions. Well, I've never been to my high school reunion. Oh my God. It's probably because I was abused by all the teachers. Not just because it's not fun to go to. I was avoiding this topic. I found myself wondering why I didn't go to the reunions. Why was I dancing so frantically? Why was I so intent on ending the conversation? Oh, here. Then another recovered memory of my abuse of my uncle came forth. It involved my last sleepover at Aunt Kitty's when I was alone with Tom at age 12, the same age my daughter was when I had the memory. I began to notice that simple life experiences like the smell of a cigar, looking at photos, the age of one of my children, dealing with an active dog, or getting lost somewhere could cause a visceral reaction and could stir the buried memories and throw me into a panic. So now I went for another massage, hoping for the slightest relief. And as I laid on the table, I saw in my mind, you see, she sees a lot of things in her mind, a man in plaid pants and a different plaid shirt. He was big and smelled of stale beer and cigarettes, and he was on top of me. The experience scared me. I had no idea what was going on since memories seldom surfaced while I was having a massage, but I knew I was in a safe place with Pat. Oh, it's me giving the massage. It was very much like the flashbacks I had years before when I started to remember Tom abusing me. I had deep, unsettled feelings about what happened, and I left there feeling a fear in me. Then she began. Then after she remembered the man on top of her and stinking, I began throwing up more memories of other strangers touching me, petting me, abusing me. I remember being in the back room of the green door, and I was fondled and molested by strangers while Tom stood listening at the door. I was disgusted. So then she goes up to the attic. I went to my mother's attic and searched for boxes from the yearbook from Keogh, and I saw the picture of Magnus. I immediately knew, oh my God, that was the man in the confessional. When I looked at the picture next to him of Father Joseph Maskell, I blurted out, shit, and my body immediately began trembling with fear and dread. That's how she began to realize he had molested her too, you see. Okay. I was questioning anything and everything that had any religious or spiritual connection. This doubt invaded my prayer and my meditative reflections. I was constantly aware of heaviness around my shoulders. Many more repressed memories of sexual abuse by priests and other adults continued to surface and unfold. Oh, here we get the brother Bob. On another occasion, I went to Maskell's office. I found not only Maskell waiting for me, but another man as well. This was not the first memory of another adult being in the room with Maskell, but it was the first time I remember this man being there. I'm not sure if I was told his name was Brother Bob or I heard him being called that by Maskell. This day, Maskell stood by the door, providing me with a feeling of being protected. Brother Bob began by putting a red dog collar around my throat. The collar had a soft madras material on the inside, which lay against my skin as if to assure me there would be no chafing. He then attached a leash. This is the first time I remember this collar being used on me. Brother Bob instructed me to get on all fours. He said he would paddle me until I barked like a dog. The paddle was made of wood and had holes in it, which made it more painful. But of course, there was no any physical signs on her body she was ever abused. This was not the first or last time this torturous tool was used on me in this room. I still hear the little girl in my head saying, "I won't bark, I won't bark, I won't bark," until it hurt so much she found herself barking like a dog. Again, bizarre ideation. Brother Bob then raped me from the rear. She's vomiting. In 1992, she was vomiting more memories. The last one slowly and painfully unfolding like dry heaves. I remember the assaults on me at Keogh as if they were happening for the first time. They were brutal, methodical, and criminal. I was raped and otherwise sexually abused by several clergy and other adults, including a politician and a police officer. I later discovered other girls had similar abuse. Okay. Then I'm trying to see where some of these other, it just goes on and on and on like this. I think I might have to stop about here. Oh, she starts abusing her. She abuses two of her dogs because they remind her of the pain of what happened in the basement for some reason. And they had to get rid of the dogs because she was violent toward the dogs. Really? She got rid of the dogs. I cried for the two good dogs I had to give away to protect them from me. I now understand the answer to questions. Why the dogs? With the recovery of many memories, I realized the dogs were used in different ways by my perpetrators. Strider was with us when I began recovering from memories of Tom's abuse, in which his dog was always present. Velvet was with us when I began remembering Brother Bob, who attached a red dog collar to my neck. That's why I struck out at the innocent dogs who become symbols of the abuse. Oh my God. Let's see what other bizarre things she goes through. It's just so much. Oh, she thought she killed a woman named Cathy. She said, "You didn't." Okay, that's good. She said, this is where she said they hired Richard Busey, a private detective referred by the lawyers Mike and I retained after firing Steve Tully. Mr. Busey was hired once I began to remember Sister Cathy's murder. He investigated my responses to the ads my lawyers posted in the newspapers pertaining to abuse. And that's where they started getting all these other people to go along with the program. The central issues in the case were whether I did or did not repress memories of the abuse at Keogh, and whether that even mattered. In short, because the suit was filed so long after the period of limitations had expired, the court needed to decide if repressed memories as a cause for the delay was a valid reason. And so she lost the case, but all right. Another persona came in. Wait a minute. A persona named Frances. This persona, Frances, introduced herself to me in 1992 when the memories began to surface. It was Frances who was raped by Brother Bob right after he said he killed Cathy. Oh, yeah. So Brother Bob, it turns out the priest, the father, what's his name, didn't kill Cathy. This other guy did. He said that he killed her because she was going to talk, and so he hit her, and he didn't mean to kill her, but he did. Anyway, that's one of the stories. She lay motionless on the floor, and it was Jeannie who spontaneously arose when Frances could not get up. In my quiet and wild journaling, Jeannie proceeded to tell me she was in love with Brother Bob and to get over it. I was horrified. I stopped writing. I put Jeannie back in her box and went underground again. But unfortunately, I could not forget what I just learned about myself, and it meant more years of therapy. Let's see. Then she had the intense love of the mother presence. I needed time to integrate my experience of the spiritual awakening to the sacred feminine energy. And she found she was ready to return from the tomb's entrance and see a woman standing there with outstretched arms, waiting patiently. And I was being drawn into the truth and the pure light. And it took years of contemplation and therapy before I began to see the tomb as the womb of my rebirth into life. And then she had an encounter with an animal spirit guide along with a white mare, but she's got the great gray now, which is the owl. Finding my voice. Okay, she's now in the present. Oh yeah, this is the second example is when I revealed that Maskell forced me to have an abortion. 3 times he took me to see a doctor. Once he and the doctor raped me. A second time, the doctor examined me for possible pregnancy. The last time, the doctor aborted my baby without my consent. Maskell let men rape me, and he used the abortion as a contraceptive. Let me be clear. A Catholic priest who preached on Sunday that abortions were the worst possible sin, and a licensed doctor who was bound by the law not to perform abortions until 1973, took a child from my body without my consent. And her parents had no clue. Okay. I think I have to stop. It's so exhausting. Now she's in a bathroom with Dr. Beck. It just goes on and on. I mean, it goes on and on and on with years and years of these bizarre ideations, bizarre methodologies of getting to these ideations from meditation to prayer, supposedly Christian prayer, where that don't sound so Christian prayer to me. And even getting that things happening during massages. I mean, it's ludicrous. And that's why the court said, and none of this is anything that she has any proof ever happened. It's all nonsense. And this keeper's crap, this whole ridiculous production by Netflix that put her at front and center as telling the truth. And that added in her buddy there, who also had repressed memories. And that's what the whole thing is based on. And they're never giving a crap actually what happened to Sister Cathy, because Sister Cathy was not killed by anybody that had anything to do with her religion or the school or any priests. It's a serial killer. She maybe so, but again, nothing to do with Satanism or abuse. In her case, it wasn't anything to do with sexual abuse. It's just if he did it, he just got pissed off at her. And nothing here. So yes, there may be issues within the whole organization that should be, that are concerning and should be dealt with. But this whole nonsense thing, the whole keepers thing, is such a travesty, absolute despicable travesty. And people keep pushing this crap, and it's just really irritating. So anyway, I'm going to check your comments, and I'm going to stop about now because I've read you like 30 minutes of this miserable book, which most people reading it think is the most amazing thing ever, and how honest and open she is. And to me, she's got psychological problems up the kazoo. Bull's wanky. Okay, this is interesting. Oh, Christoph, from what I hear, the whole book is written very lyrically, not like a victim's report, more like very strange fantasies told almost with pleasure, quite pornographic. Yes. Again, the paraphilia thing is there. She obsesses over bizarre paraphilia type of sexual stuff that she can't seem to control and keep coming into her mind. Yes, it is fantasy. And I like the way you say it is quite pornographic, which is why, hopefully I won't have my entire video removed for reading that. But I felt like if I'm going to put this video out, I have to at least read it to you from her book, because once you hear that, you can, if you still believe her stuff, I don't know what to tell you. Please read our chat for a laugh. I'm trying to move backwards now. Never seen Pat abuse her patrons before. Why? Oh my God. After all that, I believe her. I'm also understood Stockholm syndrome. Oh my gosh. Has Sarah left the building? Probably. Um, Pat, you were torturing us. Yeah, I didn't get to see any of her comments when I read through the whole thing. So look, I had to read the entire book. I saved you $10 and having to listen. That this is only part of it. I mean, yeah. And if you haven't seen The Keepers, don't bother. Yes, I did torture you. Let's see what else abusing things you said about me. Torturing you. Um, Hold on, I'm going back up here. Pat, you missed all the assaults you could have seen at the reunion. Yeah, I'm so sad she had a child. She had more than one. The kids seem to think they're okay. I don't know if they're believing everything that the husband has died. He seemed to stand by her side. I don't know that we got adult husband, like I've pointed out many times before. You know, when you get somebody who has this kind of uh, psychology, that you have an adult husband who, as long as he's, he just goes along with, he's a nice guy and just goes along with it. I don't know. Maybe they believed her. Maybe she was going to all these things and they believed that the prayer and the meditations and all these supposed helpers, people who should probably should lose their licenses and shouldn't. I mean, anybody who pushes this crap needs to lose any kind of license they have to practice psychology of any sort. And if you're a part of the church and you're promoting this kind of quote prayer, I don't know what kind of prayer you're promoting. So, yeah. That may be true. The husband was too vanilla and she wanted more and she wasn't getting it. Maybe the sex life just wasn't fun. You know what I mean? So she was like, yeah. But of course she'll say that everything is just those repressed memories. Oh no, Little Genie by Elton John. Lord. Very pornographically written, almost as if you enjoy reporting it. Is that me or her? Penises and maggots makes sense. Lord. She didn't have any near-death experiences. Don't give her something. She's going to come up with something soon. I mean, that may be true. Maybe she's a Messiah, Laura DeSass, and that repressed memory will coming to her later. Good. Yeah, the next book. Yeah. It's so all over the place. When one of the things you look at somebody who's really kind of obsessing and creating and has whatever thing they have going on in their heads, and I've seen this with schizophrenics too. They're literally every place. That's why they believe governments are spying on them and this person is doing that to them. They're being followed and stalked. They're like all over the place. They don't just have one thing that they can't stop either. She could just say, one guy molested me. I know. I remember now that I was at school, this priest molested me. And what he did was he touched my boobs and once he put his hand between my legs and he asked me if I liked it. That would be believable. But she can't stop. She can't stop. She is vomiting all the stuff. She can't stop. It's not just him. It's everybody, the police and the other teachers, and everybody's molesting her. And she also can't stop with basic sexual stuff. She's got to add in all the bizarre paraphilia stuff. And so she cannot stop with creating something that is just incredible, and not credible. So that is a big problem. I like the anteater part. And then he released the cockroaches and an anteater into my coffin. I mean, who does that? I mean, even perverts. They're like, dang, I never even thought of doing that. I got to check that one out, I mean, it just makes no sense. Nobody does this kind of stuff. I mean, they do some atrocious stuff. And I've had to deal with cases where you don't want to know what they did. Okay. But this is so nonsensical. It's not even believable. So Chesterton says, how can someone have so many repressed memories with in-depth dialogue as well? Well, bloody crazy, because she starts with an idea and she's like writing it. I mean, I know what that's like. It's because as a writer, I'm not a person who does I don't set up my whole plan of what I'm going to do. I don't have an outline. So I just start writing and I'll let it flow. And things happen in the writing. It's like, oh, somebody shows up and, oh, this is what's happening. It's like, what do we call stream of consciousness. I write stream of consciousness. I do most of these shows, stream of consciousness. I just try to stick to facts. But when I'm writing like a fictional thing, it's stream of consciousness. People arrive and then they do things. So it's you do fantasize in a sense. You're putting your brain in a place where you can fantasize things happening. And that's what she's doing. It's a stream of consciousness thing. It's not coming from God. It's not coming from Jesus. It's not coming from repressed memories. It's coming from her creative mind, because she's got some weird ass obsession about things. And in my opinion, that are very disturbing. And my opinion is she needs psychological help, and not the kind she's ever gotten. And people don't need to believe her, and to actually not even make sure she's telling any truth. And just believing this stuff, lock, stock, and barrel. So either the people who did this show, the Netflix show, the producer and the two women who they're trying to find out really what happened to her. I mean, I think all of them are despicable. You put this garbage out to the public. You don't care that it's true, but you make a lot of money and you get to be famous and you get to feel important. So I don't know what the psychology is on all of you guys who did this nonsensical, horrible quote documentary. That's my speech on that. How can anybody listen to her and take her testimony and maintain a straight face? I don't know. And the woman who claimed this one too, the stuff that that woman said about what happened to her with that priest is also ludicrous. They can't just go with the guy didn't like her. That's much more reasonable. But no, but this person had to create a fantasy, and and the guy ended up getting convicted because of it, but because it was brought to light, and this one detective said, oh, I forgot about that case. I don't know that he believed anything she said, but it brought back the memory of the case. And maybe they did get the right guy, because I don't know that there's anybody else to get, but I don't know how good the evidence was. But I would say of the suspects out there, he would certainly be my choice, but not because of any bizarre stuff, just because he got angry, well, this is interesting. Sarah says she gets off on trauma dumping and the reactions and attention she gets from it. I would say that true. Yeah. Enemas, really? Yeah. I mean, there are people who like to do enemas. That is a paraphilia, but doing it's just unlikely in those circumstances that, yeah, oh, she's a perv of the highest order. Well, she may be. Next, Sherry Papini is going to bust out some repressed memories. I would not be surprised. All kinds of things are going to come up from Sherry Papini for the same exact reason. And she's got her new documentary coming out because, as I point out, there are some great things done by producers and some great documentaries. And so just like there's great books. I mean, again, it's not the entire industry, but so much of the industry doesn't really care about the truth. And I find that really sad, because it's made me I don't trust most people call me up and say, hey, Pat, we'd like to do a documentary with you. I'm like, and what is this going to be about? It's because I don't trust you. And, I got to make sure that what I'm going to do is going to be something that has some merit to it. So it's yeah, but very fun, very, very an interesting, very interesting commentary you have in the chat room. I think you had a really good time when I was reading that horror. Oh yes, 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, that's a very sad thing. It's a fictional book, but it's very sad because we have basically a sadistic psychopath in Christian, and he is, and this is supposed to be a guy you're supposed to fall in love with. And the guy was a creepy as heck, but thank God he was rich, because if he wasn't rich, I mean, he had the plane and the fancy thing, and it made her sign the document, and he was rich, and she was gonna bring him. She knew he was hurt as a young boy, so she was gonna save him. It's a sick thing, and anybody who read that and watched the movies and thought, oh, he's attractive. I'm like, wow, you got issues. You really got to think about that, because that is not attractive. That guy was creepy as heck. I actually wrote, if I remember, if I can find it, I'll link it below. I actually wrote about when Christian killed Anna. Is that her name, Anna? I actually did a thing where she finally is with him and realizes he's not the nice guy that she, it's a pretty brutal thing. And there's like an anti-fan fiction, and people are like, oh my God. But I said, that is really what would have happened to it. So I'll try to find it and see if I can link it below. So, yeah. But anyway, all right. That is it. I can't stomach anymore myself. But yeah, so we'll see if this video doesn't get pulled off of YouTube. But again, it's not being monetized, because there's no way I could even read that and not have it be demonetized immediately. But I wanted you to hear it, because, you know, if you're going to believe stuff and believe people are guilty of things, even if he is guilty of some things, you know, not saying people aren't guilty of some things, but if you're going to believe that stuff lock, stock, and barrel and fall for it, it's an insult to victims, in my opinion, because victims should, you're putting stuff, those two women are putting stuff out there that is so unbelievable that it insults victims and makes people not trust victims and what they say. At least it does me. No, well, not me. I'll trust victims if I believe what they're saying, if it makes sense and they have some kind of proof or something. But the concept that you should simply believe everything a woman says because she says it is garbage. And that's not the way our legal system should work. And it's not the way our ethics should work and our morals should work. We shouldn't believe somebody just because they said it. We have to have some belief that what they're saying is true, and that the people they're accusing, her uncle, the priests, the nuns, the police, everybody, the police, everybody that she's accusing is ruining their reputations across the board, when she hasn't got one shred of proof any of this is true. And that people wouldn't stop to say, hey, we can't do a documentary and have you say this libel is garbage. But she did leave out, as one of you just pointed out, she did leave out names, because she names the people that she can name, the dead guy, and everybody. And I don't know, for some reason the priest, she could go after him for a while. Forgot his name now, Maskell. But everybody else is nameless, and then she keeps them that way because she probably would get sued. But yeah, it's pretty appalling, and wasn't what I expected. Well, I'm glad you liked it, Christoph. I'll say it wasn't in my plans to do this kind of a show. Believe you me. Thank you very much, Cauliflower. I do appreciate your patrons supporting me, and that makes a huge difference, because otherwise I'd have to be really cautious about ever doing anything like this. And the only thing I do have to be cautious of is I don't want my channel to be pulled down because I offend whatever weird, community guidelines there are. This is not a show for children anyway. And I avoid, as much as I don't ever show crime scene photos. I don't show anything gory. I try to avoid all that stuff for the most part. And what I'm talking about here is not true stuff. And so I talk about she's being assaulted as a child, and this is what she's as a child is supposed to do. This is not even true. So I'm trying to point out what she's saying that is not believable. And so to bring some truth to it, but how it's going to be taken is a whole other question. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that by demonetizing this video, I at least prevent myself from getting more damage. But again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe, join Patreon. And again, there's a little $sign that will be there when this is public. You can click on that and donate, or go to PayPal. And yeah, I'll try to take some of the pain away from doing this show. Well, thank you, Liz. Thank you for a wonderful show. Pat, loved your book, Killing for Sport. Thank you. You make me look forward to Sundays. Well, most Sundays, sometimes other days, but very much so. Okay. I'm going to go make myself a nice dinner and just relax now and get over having to listen to this woman's tripe. And I tell you, anyway, thank you. See you soon. Bye.